Ah!
That's it.
Okay. That's all I got. Well, I hope that this is one of our faster, shorter shows. We do have a bunch of updates, though. So let's get started.
All right.
This is a Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And you can find all of our past shows at kpppfm.com. Tonight, I am talking about Migrant Caravan updates, the kind of which you will not get anywhere else. Because, like I said, I am a Mexican Crossing Lines, so you don't have to be, which means I'm paying attention to all of the media in Mexico for you. I'm listening to it. I am bringing you the reports from that Mexican media from a variety of different sources. And also, I'm doing analysis and media coverage on the connections between the people that are helping to back and organize financially, support, etc., this migrant caravan from these United States and what they're tied to. And there's been a lot of connections to the organizers of Standing Rock and many of the pipeline camps that we saw after that. It's very relevant to this conversation. So I'm going to put that all together in this one show so you don't have to go and curate all that information on your own. This is a great show to share with people who don't know what the heck is going on with the caravan. Everyone is so polarized about this topic. And if you're an American citizen, you're biased. I'm sorry. You just are, because all you consume is American news. All you have is your perspective as an American. You don't have the perspective of people in Mexico or Central America, for that matter. You just only see things from your worldview. It doesn't matter if you're Mexican in America, raised in America, consuming American news. Yes, to my Mexican friends out there, I'm talking to you, the ones that live here in the United States I grew up with, and we know each other well. You too have a biased view. Believe it or not, things are not as simple as we have reduced them to be. They just aren't. There's a lot of different things happening all over the spectrum, and we are so upset by what people on the opposite side of where we are on are saying or how they're saying it. We are many times failing to hear the important parts of all of those arguments. And if we're going to solve this problem, like I know the people of Tijuana want it solved, I know the people of Mexico want it solved, then we, not just Mexico, we, all of the people who are involved, most directly affected, which would be the Central Americans, the Mexican people, the people in the caravan, and Americans. So, because y'all are involved in it one way or the other, right? So, we need to talk about solutions, and that means we need to be properly informed. By the way, thank you for sending me updates on all of the things that you've been sending me. And before I have Duke tell all of you how you can get in touch with us to send us information or comments, I want to send a shout out to the people of Tijuana en Español. Les voy a hacer más programas en español y espero que muchos de ustedes me disculpen. Vean mis programas en inglés si les sirven, si los pueden entender. Me tardo mucho tiempo en recompilar toda esta información y me cuesta muchísimo trabajo hacer un programa entero donde traduzco del inglés al español, y creo que para ambos lados se hace un poco más tedioso y más largo, entonces que por lo tanto voy a hacerlos por separado. Este es el que viene en inglés, pero les mando un fuerte abrazo, un beso, todo mi cariño, mi atención está en Tijuana, mi atención está en todos los lugares afectados. Mexicali, te vemos. Ciudad de México, te vemos. Vemos el esfuerzo de la gente de México, todo lo que han tenido que pasar por lo que está pasando con esta caravana. Y mi corazón está con ustedes, mis pensamientos están con ustedes y espero que mis reportajes les sirvan. So, I will be doing more shows in Spanish. This one is going to be in English. And I did want to send a shout out to those who are expecting to hear me talking in Spanish. I will switch in and out from time to time because that is my first language. Can you believe that? But also, again, thanks to all the people that sent us information, some of which I have used for the show. I've got lots more to show you. So how can folks get at us, Duke?
Well, there's many ways, and I do thank you for doing all the translating and all the work you were doing on these shows. I'm blessed that you're my wife, and that you are going through the Mexican news and translating all the stuff you're listening to so I can be involved, so I can have a better understanding. And you're doing that for the listening and viewing audience too, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. I appreciate people that do send us information because your information has been incredible. It's helped us with so many things. It's given us leads of things that we haven't seen. And now we're starting to get information in Spanish, so it's wonderful. One way you can get hold of us is call our message line. If you want to give a voicemail and leave a message for us, it's 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. It goes to a machine and we will record your message. Sometimes we put the messages on air. If you really have something to say, you want to say it with your own voice, send it to us. If you want to do a more traditional route, just do email. Cindy@kpppfm.com or me, Duke at kpppfm.com. Also, if you want to tweet us, you can tweet us at media_ppp. You can also go to Facebook. Facebook has been what seems to be the most popular place to get a hold of us. It's 88.1 Fargo Moorhead is a main radio station site, but we have a couple more. We have the People's Press Project, and Mexi-Can online on Facebook, and also Cindy has a page, a public page at Cindy Gomez-Schempp. Then also we have our website, and I do apologize that the past two shows are not currently up on the website. I'll get those done tonight. Is kpppfm.com, and that's where we host our audio. We are a radio station, so we break down all these shows into audio. Some we play on the air, some we don't. But most of them we do, and we'll indicate that on the webpage when we do. But that's where you can go listen. Say you're driving and you want to listen to the show, you can go to the kpppfm.com, go to the show of Mexican Crossing Lines and see all the shows that were put there. Also, we have the archives, which basically are all the shows. Another place you can find all the shows. And on each website, there's a place where you can comment. You can comment below that story, and then your comments will go on our website. The video itself, we do the Facebook Live video because we have had this wonderful reach from all over the country, into Mexico, into Europe, and other places. When I look at the stats, we have quite a few places that are in the United States that are watching us, and we appreciate people in other countries that are paying attention to what we're doing. But our Facebook has that reach, but we've decided to take our Facebook videos and also duplicate them on YouTube. And that way we have a platform that's not going to mess with us as much as Facebook does. And we record all these programs, so it doesn't matter if Facebook takes us down or takes our videos off. We're putting them on YouTube. The channel's name is Duke1517. It's a channel I put in to use 6 years ago, and I haven't changed the name. I haven't figured out how to do it, but we're trying to put high definition videos on that site. Now, come back to our kpppfm.com, and remember, we're a nonprofit, non-commercial radio station, community-run radio station. That's our primary purpose, and we're located in the Fargo-Moorhead region, and we appreciate that people that support us because we're non-commercial. We don't do commercials. We do a thing called underwriting. So if you have a business idea that you would like to promote and you think the platform of our videos and our reach locally in the FM area over the radio would be valuable to you, let us know. We can do underwriting, which is like advertising, but it's basically a donation to our organization because we are a 501c3 tax-exempt federally recognized nonprofit organization. So any contributions you make to us are tax deductible, and the end of the year is coming up. If you need a tax break, make a donation to us. Help us run our station, our day-to-day uses to pay for what we need to do to keep on air. We'd really appreciate it. So we do thank everybody for everything they're doing, and we'd love to hear more from you, and we love the comments, and we love the messages. Thank you.
And we really need your support to grow, because that is what we are doing right now. We actually wanted to add another studio. We're fundraising currently for that purpose so that we can bring in more creators of content. Between the shows that we produce locally, we barely have enough time in the day in this studio. So we do want to expand, and for that, we need your support. We want to bring you a lot more amazing local content, and you can be a supporter of local community media. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's get to the show. One thing I will say before we start, I want folks to really open your minds. Open your minds. Please, please open your minds. Because, as I said, everything is so polarized. We have a filter through which we are seeing the news about the caravan. From our American filter, or we have a Mexican filter, or we have a Republican filter, or, you know. So I want us to, like, take off the filter just for the show. Okay, you can put it back on as soon as we're done if you want. But you might find it useful to take your filter off for a minute and try to look at the information I'm giving you from other people's perspectives. Instead of wearing your filter, take your filter off and see that there are other people, all of whose filters are different than yours. And try to look through theirs for a second and go, oh, maybe there's something to this person's complaint or concern. Because I think that's what we need to do here. I think if we're solution oriented, we need to think about other people's complaints and concerns regarding the caravan. Okay. First off, I want to tell you that there has been a severe backlash and reaction to the United States using gas to stop, I guess, to attack the people that were coming toward the border, trying to cross over to the other side into the United States this weekend. Members of the caravan were out, according to leaders of that group, which they discussed at a press conference that was given recently. I will be telling you more about that press conference. I actually live tweeted that press conference so that I could translate it for my audience and keep a record of what was said. And I'm going to be sharing it on my radio show here with you today. I wanted to make very clear to people in case it came off differently. And I kind of realized after I was live tweeting what was happening, I should have probably done a tweet before that said, I will be live tweeting the press conferences. Statements regarding the press conferences with this hashtag will not be my own. They'll be, like, this is what's being said right now. I'm just live tweeting what they're saying, not really my reactions to it. But I want to make that disclaimer here. So you will be seeing those tweets, and I will be having the opportunity, you and I will both comment on them here. But that was not what I was doing in the tweets themselves. I was relaying and translating what was being said by whoever was speaking into the microphone at the time. I also want to tell you that here in the United States, you also are, impacted by what kind of media you're taking in, right? And also what American media tells you and what American media chooses not to tell you. All the American media, all of it. One thing that you should know about the way in which the media had an impact on your perception of what happened, specifically with regard to the use of American force, rubber bullets, gas, all of that, where in crowds where women and children were affected, right? And you should know that the Sinclair Group, we've talked about it here on our station before, which is a group that controls a lot of local television stations all across the country. I mean, like most of them. But it is a large portion of local television stations. They were all forced to run a segment that defended gassing of migrants.
Oh, really?
And I think that we need to know that as Americans, that if there was not that propaganda, because what else do you call that? That's if a media station, any kind of media station, is required to run, that's state-sponsored media.
It is.
That's not the choice of the station. It's like somebody gets to walk in, and in this case, it's the owners of the company, to every one of those newsrooms and says, we're going to decide part of your content, and you have to run it regardless of whether or not you would ever normally produce a story like this in your own TV or radio or whatever station, right? That's wrong. Inherent. That should bother you that they didn't have a choice, and neither did you. You had to take in this, maybe to the station that was programming it for you, anathema to their, news reporting. But they still had to do it.
Yeah, and it's very common. I've heard about this for years, and it's a problem with corporate media, because corporate media is run by huge corporations, and they aren't independent, and they're funded well. The news that's produced, that's why we can see it so easily. It's really hard to see independent media because we don't have the reach or the funding to get our stuff out there to that extent. And I've even seen some stuff on CNN what happened over the weekend. And it's like, after hearing Cindy watch these different live streamers and different news agencies in Tijuana, that, these guys are putting together the wrong story. And I'm seeing the same story on almost every channel. Don't march in and say this is what you run and they have to do it. And it's very common. There's these news briefings. And imagine that, not only this, imagine all the other stuff you care about. Imagine stuff with the Trump administration. How many stories are being basically shackled by the corporate media owners that don't allow the media to actually play what they actually know. And they have to do it, otherwise they'll get fired. And that company also, they get sold. They're ripped out from underneath them. The people that are working there, the people that are higher ups in those organizations, they have to basically bow down and kowtow to the owners, otherwise they won't have jobs.
And if you want to read more about this Sinclair Group story, you can go to the businessinsider.com. I'll be sharing the link to that article along with this program for our listeners and viewers. I also would like to recommend for you, especially those of you that do speak and understand Spanish, the Facebook news sources, the different Facebook pages that you could follow to find out more about these publications, newspapers, and online media resources, which I have been following, among others. These are 90% of them. I also followed a variety of neighborhood chat groups where they report, stolen bikes and hit and runs and some of the local gossip, which are not necessarily news sources, but there are a lot of people talking about the Caravan everywhere in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. And then I also joined a lot of different, I don't know, they wouldn't be considered news groups, but they're like groups where people talk about local celebrities and, kind of entertainment,
Yeah. One thing
information, not necessarily news.
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit more tabloidy type things.
Yeah.
So I didn't include those, although I did and have been following what they're saying because I really do want to get a whole variety of perspectives as to how people are feeling about the caravan and how the news is reporting it. So I listen to people that would be considered, you know, on the right or on the far right. I listen to what you would consider the mainstream news. I listen to people on the left. I listen to conspiracy theorists. I listened to everybody because I wanted to get a better picture of how people are reacting and reporting this caravan news in Mexico. But of the list, I think are some of the best for you to check out. I've got at the very, very top of that list, I love his reporting, Alfredo Alvarez. And you can find him on Facebook at Alfredo Alvarez MX. There's also Agencia Multimedios, which is out of Nogales, and you can find them at Cobertura Digital. Also, you can check out El Sol de Tijuana, which it translates into the Tijuana Sun, which you can find at El Mexicano online. Protección Civil Municipal Tijuana, which is actually like government agency, the Civil Protection Municipal Unit of Tijuana at Protección Civil Tijuana. You can also check out Frontera Info, which means border information. And it's a news group called you can find at frontera.info. Also, the big major media network, which is one of the like two major studios. TV Azteca is one, and then you've got Televisa.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Televisa Tijuana Oficial, and that is at Tijuana Televisa, and finally TJ Viral Noticias at TJ Viral Noticias. I will give you the links for all of those along with this show so you can find them and you don't have to like...
I'm going to give you a hint for someone who doesn't speak hardly any Spanish.
Yeah.
But one way Alfredo, I've been watching him because you can type in your browser if you're a member of Facebook Live Map, and then go to Tijuana and go over and look and see who's live streaming. And you put your little cursor over the top and they'll pop up. And that way you can actually see, what's very valuable about that. Speaking Spanish, but you can hear a few words, jot a few words down as you hear them, and use your translator to translate. But I think it's really important to see what's going on, to see what's happening to the crowds. If there's a crowd running around or if there's just people standing around, or when the shelter closes at 10 at night. So about, Eastern or Western time, Pacific time. And, so around 10 o'clock, I'll go ahead and I'll put the Facebook Live map on. I'll see who's doing news stories and I'll see all the major networks there, and I'll just see a lot of individuals, and some have nothing to do with the caravan, someone doing makeup or gifts and those sorts of things. But you can see live what's going on. And that is really important because you might see CNN using the same sort of footage the next day, and you also have seen it in a different context, and you're seeing it in a live context instead of editing. So that's just a hint for you if you want to do a little more research and see stuff on the ground.
I know, and it's kind of funny because we've been watching so many different things from so many different people. I'm also watching live streamers from the United States. I'm watching news organizations from the United States and then comparing. I've watched so many things. I can actually be like, oh, this is that same interview, but from a different angle.
Yep, exactly.
Like that guy over there is, from that news organization. It's kind of fun when you immerse yourself this much.
Mm-hmm.
So, there is a whole host of shows I've done on the Caravan I want to recommend to you. Please go check them out. The latest of which I told you was one of the first caravans to arrive in TJ. That's short for Tijuana. The LGBTQIA caravan led by Pitaya Queen. I'm still finding out more about her. I have an interview coming up with a person that knows her closely, so I'm hoping to get more information about her past and present dealings. I am told this person is kind of her other right-hand person in smuggling people through borders. I also want you to check out Caravan Consequences, and I have shows in Spanish. And of course, as Duke said, you can go find those all on YouTube at Duke1517. Okay, so before I begin going through my tweets and the analysis of these updates for you, I just wanted to tell you that my criticism, whether you're American or Mexican or Central American, my criticism of how people are talking about the caravan is that in addition to looking at it through their own personal lens and not being very flexible with that, there is the entrenched way, the very unflexible way in which each of these groups are presenting their worldview. For those who are on the left, the progressives in America or in Mexico, there is this understanding, this palpable knowledge that racism is one of the main issues that people of color are concerned with, and that we are seeing impacting our life right now, or deaths maybe is a better, more appropriate word. And the reason that people on the left are talking about these issues in such a supercharged way is because they know people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So much so that there was a blue wave. So much so that there was Me Too. So much so that we are willing to talk about, abolish ICE, even though Democrats are backing off the issue. That we are willing to sit down and have a conversation about building that wall now, maybe because, we need immigration reform, so we're just going to have to do it. And people are starting to, have this very rigid stance on, we're going to support these ideas, and any deviation from that will be called racist, and any deviation from that will be called xenophobic, and any deviation, any concern raised, any criticism brought up will be seen as anti-immigrant. It will be seen as anti-indigenous. It will be seen and labeled as, genocidal, etc., etc., etc. And while there is ample history to support that is exactly what has been done in the past, what I see the left doing and what I am alleging that they have done, that they did at Standing Rock, that they did at camps subsequent to Standing Rock, and that they are doing now in the camps they're setting up along the border and in the camps that exist in Mexico with refugees or caravan goers in them right this minute. And it's because their narrow worldview has to fit. It has to fit. It has to work. We need to talk about this in terms of genocide, a continuation of that genocide. We have to compare it. Also, we have to put Palestine in there. If there's a wall anywhere, they're all the same. And you know what? This is the same as anti-Palestinian sentiment. There's actually a group of Palestinians that are saying this right now in Texas, protesting in support of the caravan. Yeah, it's a thing. This is the kind of crazy thing that I'm seeing on the left that I'm going, why is that even a thing? Why does it have to be that way? And it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm going to call out this. And I mean, it's, you're being entrenched. You're being very unflexible. And that is not solution driven. What I see on the right, and what of course is definitely pointed out by those on the left, is the knee-jerk fear, the knee-jerk racism, the justification of force and violence and hatred because, You don't feel like, it matters that you have valid concerns about security and that you have valid concerns about resources and that you have valid concerns about all these other things. And you're going to be labeled racist anyway. So why the hell not just be openly racist? Right? I get it. I get it. It just feels like you're like screaming into the void. So like, why worry about being politically correct? You have your point to make, and that's just that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Is it more important to you to be able to say what you think whenever you think it, or is it more important to you to achieve the goal of actually being more secure, of actually having ample resources for everyone, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Again, and getting a very divided Congress now to work together. If we're talking about creating policies and actually passing laws that work. Something to think about. And, the other thing that I want to say about Americans in general and talking about this as a Mexican crossing lines, I am telling you, if you don't understand Mexico, if you're not there, if you've never been there, if you don't understand the language, if you don't understand the people, if you're not watching the news, if you're not listening to their concerns, then really you are having a biased opinion when you're judging that they're white nationalists, that they're like Trump, that they're xenophobic, that they're being racist, that they're self-loathing, that they're mostly Spanish, that all of these silly things I've been hearing. I've been watching Mexicans raised in the United States arguing with Mexicans living in Mexico because they're calling them racist for saying things like, you haven't seen the messes they've left in their wake, all of which is true. All of which is true. And to that, they're being told that they are being racist. Because here in the United States, people on the left, and this is true, I've seen them. Pitaya Queen was one of those people that just put out a meme that showed a bunch of people in a migrant caravan, and it says, you call these people dirty, and it's in Spanish. It's a Spanish meme aimed at Mexican people. And underneath it says, it shows a bunch of people at, white people, European looking people anyway, at what looks like, spring break party, obviously in some Mexican resort town. And it says, but these people you have no problem with. And that is so divisive. Here's why it's divisive. Because one, it's not true. Mexicans do have a problem with ugly Americans coming in and acting ugly, breaking laws, being dirty, disrespecting the country, disrespecting women, being gross, puking everywhere, making a mess, or anything like that. We do. The difference is that when you have entire cities that depend on tourism and paying customers that, for the most part, are paying for the mess they make as well as for the accommodations that they require, they're not going to be seen the same as a group of people that came into their country unannounced. No one consulted with them the best way to do the thing that they say that they want to do. So there was no conversation between the Migrant Caravan and its creators and its funders and its organizers and its leadership and Mexico. And that is patently unfair to Mexico. And even with that, Mexico is being so gracious, so supportive, and solution-oriented. And they're literally like the parent in the middle of a fight between two of their kids, and they're holding each one of them at arm's length, trying to keep them from ripping each other into shreds. And reminding them that they're all part of the same family.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. Let's start with that thinking. And I want to start to show you some of these updates. First of all, I want you to know that there are currently 6,000 plus members, around 6,430 some last count I heard, updated as of today, plus another 2,000 in Mexicali, California. So there is approximately in total 8,500 people or so and more on their way. That's just the numbers in Mexicali, Baja California, and in Tijuana. And they're thinking about putting another shelter in Ensenada, Baja California. Plus, there are still people in Mexico City. And there are still people that have been turned around at the Mexican-Guatemalan border by the thousands by the Mexican Immigration Enforcement Agency, as well as hundreds, if not thousands, that are on their way. So do that math in your head. And also there, if you could go back to that same slide, please. There are also wild reports all over the media in which people have been saying that there are casualties, that there are deaths, whether related to the rush to the border wall where gas was deployed against migrants by the U.S. Border Patrol agents or other law enforcement agents that were there, or just in Tijuana, what kinds of dangers folks are facing, or what kinds of dangers they have faced at the hands of authorities, at the hands of people that are arresting or detaining them, etc. And I want to make it very clear that all law enforcement checking in, military, hospitals, everything, everyone, there are no reported deaths and there are no serious injuries. There is one case of HIV. There is no tuberculosis reported, and there are many upper respiratory infections, colds, and the like. Those things, yes. Regular like skin, knees, cuts, scrapes, bruises, things like that, yes also. I also want to report that in Mexicali, Baja California, there was a fight between two young pregnant women. One of those women lost her baby. I am unsure as to how far along she was. I believe she was in her first trimester. That woman is recovering in a hospital and will be released, or has already been released, because this report came from yesterday. And the other woman is fine, and her baby is also fine, but she faces criminal charges for the assault. And you should know that in Mexico, it is a crime to cause an abortion, or abortions are illegal in Mexico. So, last I knew about that law, abortions are still illegal. So this was a serious crime in Mexico. And I do believe both of those women that got into the fight were from Honduras. Next, I need to tell you that people are repatriating. Now, when I tweeted this out, I had some people in my tweets asking about the word repatriation, or actually maybe commenting that they didn't like that word, or that I was using it as a coded term instead of using deported because it sounded nicer. Nothing of the case. Nothing of the sort. I'm using it because, as many of you know, I am a paralegal, and I'm thinking about the legal ramifications of saying deported versus being repatriated, especially as a person that's worked very closely with immigration lawyers and in immigration proceedings, etc., helping people with their status and citizenship and translations. And it's a very important distinction. Whether you're talking about Mexican immigration law or American immigration law, because if you are deported under Mexican law, you will have restrictions put on you. You can have restrictions put on you by the government about your being able to return. In some cases, you may not be able to return for 10 years. In some cases, you may not be able to return for 1 or 2. In some cases, you may be barred from ever going to that country in your life again. And that is pretty big. That's a pretty big deal, especially for people from Central America or from Mexico that tend to migrate and come to the United States and go up and down this continent and into Canada and down, the continent. So, yeah, that's a big deal. And so there are people that are choosing voluntarily to be repatriated, whether that's because they force deportation. Here in the United States, a lot of people choose self-deportation, as they call it, which is also known as repatriating into the United States, rather than being deported, because they know that if they are, that carries a bigger penalty and could bar them from returning to the United States forever. So they self-deport so that they could have a chance to come back again. And we assume that that is the case in Mexico. It's not. A lot of the people that are going back to Central America, whether it's Honduras, El Salvador, or Guatemala, are doing so because of what happened over the weekend. Because they were told when they came, and I've listened to so many different reports, interviews with people, and this is what I've heard by and large. And by that I mean more than 60% of the interviews that I've heard in which people have talked about why they're going back home or why they're considering going back home. What would send them back home when they're asked, what are your plans? Some say, I'm going to U.S. or bust. Some say, I don't know. I thought we were going to be gone and in the U.S. by now. Some say, I think I might stay here. Some say, I'm going crazy. I think we're going to start a war. Some say, I want to go home. I hate this. They, so when people are asked, and they are asked that question over and over and over again by Mexican reporters, by American reporters, and increasingly by international reporters, what are your plans? And that's what they say when they're talking about going home or thinking about it. 60% and I am being generous because I mean more like 80 plus, say that the reason why they're going home is because they feel their expectations have changed. But if I'm being more honest, what they really said is that they feel lied to. If I'm being really, really honest, they feel like, or they're coming to the realization that the people that convinced them to come here, the people that manipulated them into coming here, the people that put all of these tens of thousands of people together in one large caravan that would stand out and make a huge headache for anyone having to deal with it, did so because it served their purpose and agenda, and not so much because they really wanted to help the people in the caravan. If I'm being really honest, it's because those people realized that they were given a lot of incentive to come here, like that they would be offered transportation, that there would be food, that there would be donations, that there would be shelter, that they could bring their kids, that you could be queer, gay, that in fact, all the better. We'll put you at the front of the line. You could be elderly, disabled. Yes, more of those. We want children, babies, infants, people that normally don't travel in caravans all across the country to try to go into the Mexico or the United States. Those kind of people, yes, we want them in great numbers. That they were told that there was probably going to be people from multiple countries, including Canada and the United States, ambassadors of those countries, of their governments, at the border waiting to offer them jobs and asylum. That there would be sponsors in the United States that would help them get on their feet. That there was going to be ease in this process. That it would not be a drawn out, horrible process where they would be sleeping in a baseball field somewhere in Mexico, cold, freezing with their babies, with not an adequate amount of food, with the stench of human excrement and urine reeking through the air. Because if they had been told that truth, if they had been told that they would cause outrage in Mexico because of the way they were coming through, if they were told that they shouldn't expect anything because this was all organically created and they just all got together one day to travel. So don't be making any demands of the Mexican people. Don't be saying, where's our bus? How come they're not here? Why isn't this up to par? How come the food tastes like crap? Because that would cause even greater outrage in a populace that is listening to that going, who would say that unless you're really ungrateful and entitled? Because that's how a lot of people are coming off. But it isn't because they are. It isn't because these Honduran immigrants are just a bunch of, nasty, dirty, disgusting, uncouth people. It's because they were promised some things. They had some expectations. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put the kids in those situations, or the elderly or the disabled. But of course, as soon as they hear Mexican people saying that, people in the United States, even Mexicans, are like, you're a bunch of xenophobic racists. And again, it's that filter that we're looking at this through, right? But we're not addressing the problem. You see, we're not addressing the real issue here.
Yeah. Definitely. It's like, I was brought up as an organizer, and as trained as an organizer. And I always wonder how things pull together, and how you get people mobilized to do things in unison, and it takes work. It takes messaging. It takes, convincing people to act in unison. And I've been seeing so many things happen with this that those answers have not been there. Those answers have not been forthright on what is actually going on. And hearing the reporters in Mexico talking to people, I mean, there was a young man who just said, this is not what I expected. I thought I would be in the United States working and sending money home to my family right now, because that's why I came along for this. I was ready to, my family's waiting back, and I don't know if he's in Guatemala or Honduras, but they're waiting for me to send money. And I'm sitting here in Mexico, and it looks like it's going to be months before I actually, be able to go to the United States and get a job. I can't afford that. My family's going to starve to death. I need to go back home now and try to figure out a way to survive there, because this isn't something I expected. So when you hear a testimony from a person like that, you have to think in the back, it's like, so you were promised that you would be, you'd be bussed in, you'd be like right in the United States, you'd have a sponsor, you'd be working, and you'd be sending money home to your family within a month of actually leaving. That story, I believe, is very, very common, but at least I heard one, and it really makes me question what went on in that background, what's going on in that background that's causing people to be confused, to be lied to, and to have an expectation that's not going to be met.
Liberals and progressives, whatever you want to call them, or Democrats, would rather have you believe that the people that are saying things like that are just racist and xenophobic and classist and whatever, elitist of something, or transphobic or homophobic or ableist or whatever it is that they want to accuse them of, rather than admit that they wanted to help these people. They wanted to change America's racist immigration policies. They want to push for immigration reform because they know that their base in this country is demanding it. They want an end to Muslim ban and closing the border and build the wall and all that nonsense. So they funded, helped, organized a group of people to push your buttons, to push your emotional buttons, because they know that Trump will be a gassing the migrants type of guy. They know that the base that follows Trump and his Republican cronies are going to say that they're an invasion, and they're going to talk about them in the worst possible terms and verify that, yes, they're racist, they're afraid, da-da-da-da-da. So, like, okay, but we've seen this game before. It's boring. Like, can we get to the meat of the conversation here? There are 10,000 almost people languishing on a board. Does anybody really care about that? Does anybody really care about them? I don't feel like it. I don't feel like people are talking about this the right way for me to believe that anyone wants to solve this. I feel like whether it's Republicans or Democrats, they've dug in their heels, and whether it's Mexicans in Tijuana, Mexicans throughout Mexico, looking at each other as either racist and classist or, you know, nationalistic and Trump supporting in some way, which is so ridiculous to just stick a person over there in that corner and then never talk about what's in between, which are the actual issues of the day, the problem that we need to deal with, which is now, whether you want to believe that Soros funded it or it was the Democrats or you think it was the Republic, whoever, they're there now. And we have to solve this problem. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse so fast. Partially because no one wants to solve it, and partially because it actually helps. It actually, in the minds of either side that are playing into this little game, besides Mexicans, is the idea that for Trump, if this goes nuclear, it energizes his base. And for the other side, if this goes nuclear, it energizes their base. They don't really care what happens to the immigrants in that blast, or Tijuana, or the economy of Mexico's side of this never-ending refugee camp, or Mexico in general in terms of the policies going forward after this whole debacle. Because we're the ones that have to share the border with the United States, not Guatemala, not Honduras, and not El Salvador. We do. Mexico. So I think it's important that we tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth when we're talking about this. And I don't think that most people in the media can even do that, because in America, we have a very biased view based on American values and American media and American thoughts and Republicans versus Democrats. And none of that really applies in Mexico. Next, I wanted to tell you about the number of people that have repatriated. I do know, now that we've talked about this, that actually it is over 100 people that have been flown back to their country. Or actually, I think they're flown back to Guatemala, and then they take it from there.
I see.
And they are on a jet, on an actual federal police jet that they're flown back. In fact, I watched some of the footage of them loading the plane of people. Unlike the people here that they put on planes shackled, they're just like, you know, carrying their stuff, getting on the plane like a regular flight. You know, it's very different how the immigration system works there. It's not like ICE. It's not like that. It's not like Border Patrol. Yeah, it's just not. It's very, very different. I was showing that to you, Duke. Remember, there was a police line on Mexican side, and they were playing with the kids. They were giving other people water. They were being brought water by their resource management teams, and they were handing that out to people that were in the media, in the crowd, the kids. They were playing with the kids. The kids were playing with their shields, jumping up and down on them, you know, high-fiving them, asking them questions. They're joking around with the kids. Today I was showing you footage. There's a cop outside of the shelter, Benito Juarez, sports unit. Okay. It's called. Playing with an infant and like bouncing him around and making googly eyes at him and sounds. Just completely different from what you would expect to see. Yeah. Of Americans, cops in a situation dealing with all brown people like they did in Standing Rock.
Exactly.
Polarizing. It's polarizing, right? And so I think it was very interesting to see that these people were getting on this plane and that many others were getting on buses. Now, let me tell you how difficult it has been for people. I was watching a report where there was several transport vans outside ready to take another 50, 60 people that had decided to repatriate, because a bus company in Mexico. In addition, there are 3 different ways you can repatriate if you so choose. You can go to the federal police route. I believe that those 80 to 100 people that were taken out that way were arrested in that action over the weekend, where some of the people that were caught inciting in some way. Some people are speculating. Well, hell, let me just put it out there. Joy Brunn of the Indigenous Environmental Network, whose nephew, Wiaka Eagleman, that was also, very instrumental in the creation of the camps here at Standing Rock, who is currently down in Tijuana with his drum, and a guy named Dwayne, and that are being promoted currently by Myron Dewey and Evan Duke III from the Veterans Group and Digital Smoke Signals. All of them down in Tijuana, sticking their nose in the middle of something they really don't know anything about, and being like, we are the leadership team on this. We don't even know Spanish. We don't know anything about Mexico. We don't really know Tijuana, but that doesn't matter. We're the leader. You should listen to us and what we tell you is going on. And Joy Brunn made a public post about this, saying that through reports, through her nephew, who doesn't speak Spanish at all, she says that she's getting information about how they probably had infiltrators among the Migrant Caravan, like they did at Standing Rock, that were throwing rocks at the cops and doing these bad things that incited the violence, because it wasn't real caravan goers that did this. But there's footage of real caravan goers that did throw rocks. There is. Is that justifiable for cops to then use force, like beanbag rounds, gas canisters, mace, shooting someone with real bullets like Trump said they should? No, none of it. But he did say that he would use that kind of lethal force. He did give the military the authority to do that. I mean, he was practically goading them to do it.
Yep. In fact, he used throwing rocks.
He used that term.
Yep.
And there were people in the caravan. I listened to several live streams of people in the caravan and other people that were live streaming, that were going back and forth saying, this is the way we're going to go. No, this is the way that we're going to go. And then I saw the canisters fall. They did come from the U.S. side. The Mexican people didn't do it. They fell right into Mexican neighborhoods, right on Mexican people's houses, gassing Mexican people and their children and their businesses, along with caravan people. Because the caravan people went through fences and walls that are adjacent to or part of Mexican people's houses, right there on the edge of the border. So those Mexican people, they had people running through their yards, trying to climb into their houses to get away from, the gas, or try to get away from authorities, after they were breaking through the fence, doing things that would be something you could get arrested for, right?
Yeah.
And trying to go and hide, come onto people's private property without asking and saying, I need to hide, and running into their houses and doing things like that, where the people are like, no, get off my property. I have children here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane that you would expect for someone to just like allow that to happen. But it shows you the lack of respect that some of the people in this caravan have for people, for what's going to happen to those people, for inviting that hailstorm of gas in that entire neighborhood. Those businesses probably couldn't serve food. They couldn't be open. They couldn't do anything. People had to shut themselves up inside their houses or get out of that area until the gas lifted. That takes hours. And people with respiratory illnesses or respiratory diseases, could have been more severely affected. So what I'm saying to you is, that there was a reaction to that, not just among the Mexican people, not just to increase the security forces in Mexico, to make demands by the Mexican government that this be fully investigated, why the United States did this, because it's effed up what they did, but also because we need to look at who these people in the caravan that put everyone in danger by the actions that they took are, and why the caravan goers were lied to and told, we're just going to go on a peaceful march, holding signs, trying to get the attention of Americans, of American media, of international media, and touch Donald Trump's heart as if he had one. And say, please, please, please give us asylum. We are desperate. We don't have food. We don't have enough resources. All of which is true. The conditions are increasingly desperate and deplorable. True also. But that's not what happened. I told you that this would happen. I told you that the people in these groups that went to Standing Rock did the same things there. They forced confrontations. And innocent people got drug into those situations and got injured. Let me tell you, after the nonsense that happened on November 20th, do you think I ever took my kids or anybody vulnerable back to Standing Rock? Hell to the no. In fact, I didn't even go back. It wasn't safe anymore. And the people that said, and the people that kept saying, don't leave, or please come, send more help and donations, were irresponsible and criminally liable. That's why they don't tell you that they're giving those instructions, because they could be put in jail for the things that they're doing. That's why they want to hide their hand in all of this when they're the puppet masters. That's why they won't tell you that they put some of the caravan goers up to jumping, throwing, etc. Because they want to have that violent confrontation. And interestingly enough, there were documentary filmmakers that were at Standing Rock right in the best locations to shoot. It's almost like they knew it was going to happen on that very day.
Yep.
Rob Wilson Photography, a.k.a. Johnny Dangers, he was there taking the best pictures, just like he did at Standing Rock. What a coinky-dink, right? He got lucky, didn't he?
Yeah.
No, they didn't. And the people that planned this make sure to have plenty of media there to capture the whole thing. Now, how do you think that made moms and kids and people that did not sign up for this nonsense feel? Really, really mad. Not to mention the fact that they've kept telling them and telling them and telling them that it's going to be any minute now, any day now, any minute now, any day now. And they know that people are getting really, really frustrated really, really fast. I mean, it hasn't even been like a week since the last massive amount, the biggest number of the caravan arrived. It hasn't been that long. It's been maybe a week.
Yep,
and
exactly.
It's already a powder cake about to blow, because it was going to start dawning on the people in the migrant caravan that were lied to and brought here under false pretenses that, yeah, we weren't told the truth. This whole thing about how easy it was going to be, And in addition to that, since they can't deliver on their promise, now they're going to do some crazy stunts to try to force the issue. Well, you're sort of halfway right, migrant caravan goers, because they never really cared whether or not their promises could be fulfilled. They didn't have any intention on fulfilling them or being held accountable for not fulfilling them. Because what are you going to do to hold them accountable?
Who are you going to complain to?
Yeah. Right? You can't do nothing. What's going to happen is you're going to get deported, or you're going to get stuck in Tijuana. You'll be Tijuana's business, not the American funders and the American organizations and people that put you guys up to doing all this stuff in such a messed up way that it's leaving a skid mark in Mexico. It's leaving a skid mark in the American conscience. Not those people. So the reality is that those caravan goers have had enough. And let me tell you something very interesting I witnessed on live stream. And that was groups of caravan goers right there on the bus lineup where people are grabbing their things, getting ready to leave, getting on the bus. And they even pointed the camera inside these buses where there was people that were standing there from the caravan yelling at them. Don't be beep.
Mm-hmm.
What the president likes to grab.
Oh yeah.
And other things that, call into question their courage, their masculinity, their strength, their intelligence, and
so they're being treated like defectors.
Yeah,
being treated like they're
really
defecting
bizarre.
the movement. And again, it's like, where's the movement? I've been hearing from the Standing Rocker phonies, that they've been framing this whole thing, and it's like they're setting up these camps. They're standing on the border and talking about the issues and stuff and pretending they actually know what's going on. And then, you have things like this where people are leaving and, it's a huge mess. When you have a massive amount of people that end up in a place where it can't accommodate them, you're going to have, issues, and this is not Standing Rock where there was a camp that was developed that people actually planned and put together and had the tribe moving in and helping out and all this sort of stuff. It's nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. And this is a huge group of people who are basically stranded in Mexico, and the numbers keep on growing, and the city can't accommodate the need. Like the city even said, what do you do with all the human waste from that many people in one spot in an area that's not equipped to deal with that many people? I mean, it's horrible that and then the organizing on top of it is like there's going to be these moves, and everybody's watching for seeing what these moves are, and yet they try to display those totally organic when the whole thing was planned, and there's a lot of instigators that set all this stuff up. And the Standing Rock phony people are calling it infiltrators. They're the infiltrators.
Yeah, they're the ones that actually set these people up. To think that this is going to work and that it's going to be easy and that you're just going to be granted asylum and acting as if. This is the leader of the LGBTQ caravan too. If you don't know how she has plied these people in the queer caravan and trans caravan that she's in charge of bringing over the border, you need to go listen to my show about Pitaya Queen and the LGBTQ caravan. In English, it's just called the LGBTQ caravan. But she's part of the organizing group and leadership of the people connected to Standing Rock. And I show you that in my show. And they're all supporting her. And they're all part of this. Planning, PR, marketing, you name it. Donations, transportation, drone footage, media coverage, all of it. Hook, line, and sinker. But they're not responsible for any of the mess. Or their incompetence, which they showed brilliantly at Standing Rock. In that way, and in that way alone, Duke, are these two things similar.
Okay.
They both failed spectacularly. Do you remember how they stranded thousands and thousands of veterans? They didn't even have a place for them to sleep.
Yeah.
That's what the similarities are. The people that do this are completely incompetent. And now Mexico is having to clean up their mess. And seriously, these people that have done all of this harm, they're just out there collecting donations and collecting money and giving more coverage to and uplifting, or whatever you want to call it, to all of these phony organizations, many of whom were created out of Standing Rock, like Boondock Canine Unit and all these search and rescue groups that they created on all these false media platforms that do nothing but put out more and more of this propaganda that is so harmful. It's harmful to migrants. It's harmful to immigration policy. It's harmful to Mexico. It's harmful in the backlash it will cause that will actually end up getting more people interested in building the border wall. It's harmful in almost every way imaginable, and a lot of it is coming from progressives and the left, and that's why I'm calling it out. So I want to tell you that there are people that are being bullied into staying and being part of this movement, and they're being told that if they leave, the caravan is going to break up. The caravan is going to lose its momentum. The caravan doesn't want to lose this. They don't want to lose their numbers because that's what's their leverage. As long as they have numbers too big to accommodate in any one shelter or reasonably well so that people aren't fighting over resources or that the conditions don't deteriorate to where everything smells like poop and pee. So that you have adequate security and you can maintain this over a period of time, move people through a process and do it in an orderly. If it's untenable, it forces people to greater and greater lengths to attain what they want. There will be more marches. There will be more complaints. Why do you think people riot? Why do you think that there are riots in prisons? It happens when things get out of control. And things, my friends, are quickly getting out of control. No thanks to the people that organized it to get out of control so they could have the leverage. So what happens if Mexicans, and you've underestimated Mexico and Mexicans, you stupid American organizers. Don't you see how quickly we pick your vegetables and clean your houses and mow your lawns and take care of your children? Don't you see how quickly we come up with solutions, whether it's in math, in engineering, in technology? Don't you see? We are organized. Y'all, seriously, Mexico is figuring out solutions, is working very humanely with the people. They're providing medical, dental, emotional, psychological support. They're already scouting additional locations so people could be more well taken care of and have more adequate space and adequate coverage and adequate, more comforts. They're already doing all of that, and they're doing it so well. And these incompetent, inept people, that can only cross the border and stand in front of a live stream and hand out a t-shirt that has some weird prophecy on it that suits the purposes of what? I don't know, your next documentary.
Exactly.
All that they do is add themselves and whatever donations they take over there to the balance of the problem in inadequate resources. What they should be doing is supporting Mexico businesses, Mexican who are taking a huge hit over this because of the location of the current shelter, Benito Juarez. But they're solving this stuff. So I think that, the Mexican people are going to surprise the hell out of you and how quickly and efficiently they get stuff done. And let me tell you, they get it done. They do. Okay? That's why we are Mexicans, not Mexicans. Think about it. So, the repatriation is going to continue, even though the people that are at the camp currently are fighting against it tooth and nail, and they're putting out their own narrative as to why people are leaving because they do not want the media and other people that are coming in subsequent caravans to get wind of what's really going on in TJ right now. But I'm here to tell the caravan goers that hear this, I'm going to do it when I say it in Spanish, and everyone else that's listening, the truth. Yes, lots and lots of people who are waking up and smelling the coffee are realizing that they were lied to, or that they were not told the whole truth up to, or that the people that told them all these things, they may believe that in their heart of hearts, but they're crazy and incompetent, so it doesn't really matter, and they just want to go home. And they're going home. And there are many ways that they can do that. They can take buses. There's a company that has put up buses that'll take them all the way to Guatemala. They can take the planes. If they get arrested, like some of the people in the protest march, or whatever you want to call it, that happened at the Garita, at the border crossing in San Isidro, then you can get arrested and get deported, like those people did. And then you will have restrictions on returning to this country if you do that. Or you could. You not always do, but you could. And then there is also this new government program that if they have enough people that they can fill a plane, they can get really discounted rates. And it is through the federal government. So there's 3 ways to sign up for if you want to go home. And many people are signing up more every day, as they are told, the Mexican government has set up in their vicinity, in their little ghetto, I guess. It's starting to look like a community. They're starting to have, things that they do for entertainment. There's people that are living there now from the Migrant Caravan. And by living there, I mean renting homes there. Like, they've decided they're going to stay there. They rented a house. They're getting, the Mexican government is helping them to get their work documentation legalized there, so that they can stay and work and live in Mexico. And they're out there. They already started their businesses. They're selling food. They've got some, I don't know what they're called. I'll show them to you in a minute here. But some migrants are renting houses. First of all, I wanted to show you, though. Did we already go to the no serious injuries? No. Oh, yeah, we talked about it, though. No. Okay, so there are no serious injuries that have been reported after the confrontation of migrants versus the U.S. Border Patrol. Reports that a dead girl or a child in critical condition are false. There are no critical injuries of any human, not a child, a man, or a woman. And there was no deaths. So that reporting, if you hear people saying, oh, we're still waiting to hear about this girl that was in critical condition, that's just a lie. That is made up. It started out as a dead girl, and then when they knew that they were going to be caught lying, they started saying it was a girl in critical condition, because they figured that at least somebody with a knock in the head would turn up somewhere and they could say, oh, she has a serious injury to her head. But that's not true either. It didn't turn out like that. And now they're going to have to walk back that critical condition lie as well. Stop spreading misinformation. It is unnecessary. There's already enough human tragedy with the migrant caravan itself. Some migrants, as I told you, are renting homes there, making businesses, becoming, people that have work permits in Mexico through the U.S., through the Mexican government. And they are now selling these, they look like quesadillas. That's what I would say, like a tortilla that's folded over, that's got stuff inside of it. Yeah. And they're called baleadas. They're a Honduran traditional food that they are selling. The ones that I saw that they were selling were egg, beans, and cheese. And it was in the morning. So they were selling them for, I think, 10 pesos or 15 pesos at the place that I saw this interview take place. But the interviewer walked around and says, I've seen 5 of these people selling these baleadas, and some of them are 10 pesos, some of them are 15 pesos, and some of them are 25.
Maybe some are better.
Well, one of the other vendors he interviewed about his prices, who, by the way, said he was giving them out for 15 pesos when the day before he had been selling them for 25, was questioned, and he's like, oh, so you're selling them cheaper now? Did you change your mind? And the guy said, well, it depends on what you put in them. You can serve them with meat. Yeah. So I guess, if you put more expensive ingredients in there, you're going to charge a little more, right? That makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, God, now I want to eat one.
Yep. Wish I had one right now. I paid a 25 pesos for one, that's for sure.
Right? Okay. That's hardly nothing.
I know. It's like...
You know how much the peso is to the dollar right now?
Nope, I haven't checked lately.
21. It's
really?
Like dancing around 21.
Wow.
I know.
It's only a quarter. It's only 25, 1/4 of 25. It's like 12 cents.
I know.
Not even that. It's like...
It's crazy.
6 cents. Wow.
So, And the reporter asked the guy selling, really, you're renting a house, so you have to pay rent. And he said, a bunch of us, I'm assuming they're all family members or they're family now,
Mm-hmm.
got together to rent a house together. I'm sure you could probably get a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
And he said, and then they're selling food because now they have their own kitchen that they can work out of. And he says, do you make enough? And he's like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And he was talking about how industrious they are out there. Their Mexican vendors Mexican vendors are just, woo, they're ready. They were out there walking around the caravan selling them loose cigarettes and everything you could imagine. As soon as the caravan got there, Mexican vendors were all over it. Now they're competing with Honduran vendors and Guatemalan vendors and Salvadorian vendors. They're out there selling loose cigarettes too. So it's just, it's fun to watch how this it's like an ecosystem that just kind of grows out of nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's also, this is really bizarre. There's some crazy people within this caravan saying all sorts of crazy stuff. You need to go follow at Mexican Online. Go follow on Facebook at Mexican Online. That's where you will get all of this. And if you follow me on Twitter at media_PPP, you'll get all my tweets from 88.1, from the People's Press Project, and from Mexican Online News. All the stuff about the caravan updates, up to the minute updates on the caravan like these are going to be found. News like this is going to be found on at Mexican Online. And you can go watch this video that I'm about to show you here in a minute by going to at Mexican Online. This is what the cover and page look like on Facebook. So go and check it out. Follow us, and you'll be able to get all the up-to-the-minute news about the caravan that you won't find anywhere else, and an analysis that I don't think most people can even give you. 'Cause I'm a Mexican crossing lines, yo. I'm bringing you something no one else has. Y soy bilingüe completamente. So thank you, and you're welcome. And then I've got this Honduran guy in a red cap, won't give his name to the press. He's talked to the press in various interviews, never willing to give his name. He is seen by many as one of the leaders of the caravan, and he was asked in this interview, what will happen? What are your plans if you don't get across? Or what are your plans, And he said, oh, we're getting across. It's a done deal. It is going to happen. And they said, well, but it's not really up to you if it happens or not. It's up to the United States if they let you in. And he's like, oh no. And the guy says, that's interviewing says, well, it kind of is because they have, weapons and such and soldiers on the border, and they don't have to let you in. They could just say, like, Trump's administration has said very clearly, they're not coming in. And he said, oh, but I think they'll let me in. I think they're going to let us in because if they don't, there is another more powerful country that will come to our assistance. And the reporter says, oh, really? And who's that? And he goes, Russia. It's all true. Go watch it. It's in Spanish, so you're going to have to find an English version or someone to translate it for you like I just did. But he says, Russia. And I just about fell over. I was like, what?
The Russians are coming.
The Russians are coming to help the caravan. And he goes, really? And he goes, yeah, I called some in Chile. They're in Chile. And it is a communist government. So it's like, I called them in Chile. And he says, they're on their way. I have their phone number. He's got Russia's number and he's calling them right now. So watch out. Now, I told you that the leadership of this caravan needs the numbers because it's their only leverage.
Yeah.
against Tijuana authorities, against, the American authorities, against Americans' perceptions of them. Everything hinges on them having numbers that are unmanageable, that are volatile, and that are just about to blow like a powder keg.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy will say anything to keep them there. I'm sure he would tell them that, Nelson Mandela's coming back from the dead just so he can go there.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Hollywood starts throwing some stars down there to keep them, to keep them there, to be like, you know what, these people are going to lose their mind. We're going to tell them that Jane Fonda is going to come down here.
Oh, yeah.
Or that, there's already been Mexican celebrities there. I don't know if y'all should indulge that, Mexico, but, who am I to tell you what to do? That's up to y'all. If that's the way you feel you want to give them some kind of, I don't know, compassion or whatevs, up to you. Anyway, I guess they're entitled to have a good time, to pass the time. A lot of them are. They're singing out there, dancing out there. Yep. They're playing games. They're playing ball. They're playing sports. So, it's starting to feel more like a community. What do I have next? Peace press conference stuff. Okay. Now this is the stuff that came out of the press conference they held yesterday. Again, these are not my words, although I will give you my assessment. The reason I threw Jane Fonda out, for those of you wondering, why would she bring up Jane Fonda? Because she went to Standing Rock, and because she's friends with Frances Fisher, and because Frances Fisher and her organize a lot of the things that they work on with these same Hollywood people that went to Standing Rock and that worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign and on many of the people associated with that, Bernie Sanders and his campaign were stumping for, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others. So, you've got a lot of those same actors and actresses, which I'm sure are already involved, because I saw Frances Fisher talking about this on her social media, and it was being shared by the people of Standing Rock on Sacred Stone Camp. I showed you that on my last show. So go check it out. And this one is about how people are being repatriated on those buses I told you about. Says people repatriating are being bused to Tapachula and then to Guatemala. That was one of the announcements made at the press conference. Here's another one. The people that left, about 100 of them, did so. Some were crying, the person that was relating the story said, due to a lack of information of how to ask for asylum. And that's what their claim is. The person that was relaying this information was saying that some of the people that left, about 100 or so, some were seen crying. And the reason that they left under conditions that were less than desirable was because they did not have the adequate information about how to request asylum.
Oh, yeah.
They were not given adequate information about how to request asylum. And that implies that they're being misinformed, lied to, or manipulated by the Mexican authorities that are repatriating them. That implies that somehow the Mexican authorities are acting in an underhanded way, the way that we know ICE does and Border Patrol does and the American government does here. And that would be biased. Because Mexico and Mexicans, a country of migrants and refugees themselves, are not the same as the United States. They just aren't. And I've seen a lot of the folks that are working with, including the police officers that are working with these migrant caravan people, and they are incredibly patient and they're extremely honest with them. You know why? Because Mexicans know more than anyone, especially the people of Tijuana, how hard it is to get asylum on the other side, no matter what your circumstances are. How hard it is to cross that border, that particular one. How well guarded it is. How long people have to wait for any kind of process with the American government. And they know that whoever told these people whatever pipe dream that they're coming up with when they're asking them, what are your expectations here, are lies. And they are being honest. They are telling those folks what I've been telling you on my show. This is not natural. This is not organic. It was not produced organically like the caravan people want you to believe. And that is not xenophobic. That is just truth. And those people are being exploited and used because they weren't told the truth either. So their expectations are out of whack. Someone had to tell them the truth, and Mexicans are honest enough to do that. I don't believe that the people that were being repatriated who were crying, if that's the case, you can extrapolate that they were crying for that reason. Maybe they're crying because y'all were yelling at them that they shouldn't leave and that they're a bunch of cowards. Maybe they're crying because they separated from someone in the caravan that's their family member that didn't want to leave. Yeah. I've seen that too. One teenager, I should say, decided to separate from his mother. His mother refused to leave the caravan. Her son has had it, and he wanted to go home. He said so in an interview, and his mom and him cried as they said goodbye to each other. But he was well informed of his options, and he wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah. And, so what I'm saying is these comments, some of them are also biased from the caravan people, and they could be seen in a lot of ways. I don't believe that the Mexican authorities are hiding information from these folks because they're offering them asylum. They did from the beginning. There's no reason for them to lie to them. People, Mexican sources are reporting that they have reported that many people are choosing repatriation because they realize that promises of work, asylum, etc., and how quick that would all happen were not accurate. That was from the reporting I heard and the people that were in the crowd that were asking those kinds of questions. Next, if we do march again, said the Migrant Caravan, one of the people speaking on behalf of the Migrant Caravan asked whether another one of these marches would take place to rush the border wall. They said, if we do march again, it will be a peaceful march so that the world knows we're here. Well, that was the purpose of the original march, and it didn't turn out that way. Yeah. And here's the thing. I have heard even today people were being asked about that, and they said they were looking for the next best opportunity to rush the wall. I heard several people say it. And so reporters were asking, what do we're already hearing people talking about how they're going to do the same thing as soon as they can. How do you respond to the fact that this is going to put a lot of people in harm's way? And what do you, as leaders of this caravan, as speakers on their behalf, say to the people that feel like this is irresponsible and dangerous? They said, if we do march again, we pledge that it will be peaceful and it will not be like that. And it's only for the purposes of letting people know that we're here. That remains to be seen. Yeah. And then they said that they had no current plans of another march, though. There's no plans of another march. I heard people talking about another march being planned right away. So, again, there are conflicting reports to what the caravan press conference told the press. They said one thing, they're already doing another, and I'm just being honest about what I saw reported today. Okay? They're also saying that they want to be respected. They want that if they do decide to do another march, which they're not planning to do, they don't want anyone shooting tear gas at them or trying to stop them like the Tijuana police did, or they want to be respected, and whatever that means, I think it means they want people to get out of their way, and you may find that kind of respect from the Mexican police. You might find that kind of respect. The Mexican police were trying to protect you from the tear gas. The Mexican police were trying to protect Mexican citizens and Mexican homes, Mexican property, and Mexican people from bullets and tear gas. Because the Mexican people have already suffered casualties at the hands of Border Patrol because of other people doing what you and your group did, and for doing nothing. So yes, they try to protect life and limb, and they were trying to protect all of y'all's hides by telling you not to put yourselves in harm's way because other people would get hurt in the process, but you did it anyway, and they didn't do anything to retaliate against you except for care for you, take you in, find the elements of yours that caused all that mayhem and put other people in danger, and deport them and arrest them. And you're now saying, if you do this again, you don't want to have any repercussions. Well, let me tell you, the United States soldiers, Border Patrol agents, are not going to treat you the same way. They've already shown you they don't play like that. Don't try to blame that on anybody else but the police and those authorities. Don't try to blame that on Mexico. Or nationalists or Mexican police for not doing more to protect. You want the national police? You want Mexican federal police and soldiers to start a war with the American soldiers to protect the caravan? Are you crazy?
Yeah, really.
You want to escalate violence? This is what these people are calling for, and it is absolutely redonkulous. And it's just so tone deaf, like, and entitled. Who do you think you are, you American organizers, you American, people on the left that are cheering for this, to demand that the activists in that group of people that we say, they're not doing, the federal police aren't doing anything for them. They're just letting this happen. What do you want them to do? Fire on American soldiers? Protecting their own border? As they're going to put it? As they have put it in the media? Because that isn't going to do anything except get a bunch of Mexicans killed.
Exactly.
And we're not about to do that. Because Mexicans ain't that dumb. We ain't going to carry water for these American activists who don't give a rat's ass about what happens to Mexico. Or the people in that caravan, for that matter. Because they seem to be using them as bullet food, bullet catchers. Like they did at Standing Rock.
Yep.
So they asked a question. How do you plan to get asylum? Did you know how hard it was? What are your plans? What are you going to say? How are you going to do it? And the answer was immediately, and I found it really interesting, there was this pivot to explain why the majority of the people in the caravan are eligible for asylum, which is a departure from what most of the people being asked why they're in the caravan, why they fled their countries, have been heard in multiple thousands of interviews in Spanish and other languages since the caravan started, all the way back in Honduras, which conflicts with what this person is saying here. And that is, most of them have been saying, there's no work. There's no work.
Yep.
I can't work. I need work. I want to work over there in America. I want the American dream. Work, work, work. And there's no asylum for that. Yep. You can't even apply for asylum. And that's what the majority, go for yourselves and look. Go for yourselves and look. I even heard today, one of the reporters, was that Ibrahim from Multimedios, interviewing two, a Honduran and a Salvadorian, I think. And he was asking they had kind of differing opinions on what they plan to do and how they plan to do it. And the Salvadorian was like, I've been arrested and I've been in prison in the United States, so I can't request asylum. So my plan was just to join with the caravan and, take advantage of what the caravan offered me. And then once up here, I'm just going to cross over illegally. And I'm going to, make it big. I'm going to score big. I'm going to sell drugs or do whatever I have to do. He literally said this. I'm not joking. He's like, and then I'm going to buy 2 cars. I'm going to get a nice house. I'm going to make enough money so I can go make a bunch of money quickly, go back to my country, and be like set for the next 30 years. And then just kind of retire. Wow. If I go over there, even if I have to get put back in jail, even if they put me back in jail, I get out in 10 years, I go home at 35, I'm fine, right? And when I'm in there, they're still feeding me. They're still taking care of me. And I was just listening to this going, shh, don't talk anymore. People are going to think you're all like this. This is so terrible. Why is this man even talking to the media? And then the other guy was just sitting over there just shaking his head like, this guy is crazy. And then he goes, so why are you hanging out here by the gate, by the wall? And he's like, oh, because it's expected to rain soon, and we're just going to wait for all the rain to come, and then we're going to, like, run for it when it's raining, because that'll just be the perfect time.
Oh, wow.
Everybody is going to be, like, in chaos, you know, and I'm like, oh, my God, they have a plan. And he said, they were shooting at you just this weekend.
Yeah.
They shot tear gas and rubber bullets, and he goes, that's nothing. I've been shot by a gun. And then he pulls his pants down. Fortunately, he was wearing those long, down to the knee almost, underwear.
Okay.
Like those boxer, but like those huggy ones. I'm giving you all the detail. They were gray. And he pulls it up, a little bit and shows a bullet wound right through his thigh. And he goes, look, I've been shot. Feels like a bee sting.
Oh, get out.
That's what he said. I swear to God. I gave you all the links. Folks, I gave you all the links to all my sources. You want to go check out their pages? I told you this was Ibrahim on Multimedios. Go look for yourself. Watch the video. You will not believe your eyes or ears. You will hear this kid say this stuff. And then he says, you know, I could still run with a bullet wound, and it just goes through, and you're fine. You're just fine. It'll be like, that's nothing to me. He's like, not a big deal if they shoot me with real bullets. And I'm like, oh dear God, this guy is crazy. That's exactly the kind of person we can't let in here.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, I'm wanted for crimes in El Salvador, so I can't go home. And I'm also wanted for crimes in the United States. And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah, really.
Why are you telling this media guy this? Oh, my God. Somebody's going to go arrest him before he leaves Mexico, I bet. And he just does not even care. This kid just, like, doesn't care. But he's, you know, he was really young. I think he said he was 19 years old. No, he's 25, because he said, I'm 25. If they put me in jail for 10 years, I'll get out at 35. I remember that. He's 25 years old. He's not even that young. I'm sorry. I apologize. I misremembered. He's just crazy. And so the other guy says he does not have that plan. He wants to get into the United States, but not that bad. And he doesn't know if he qualifies for asylum, because it turns out you can't just come to the United States wanting a job and they'll let you in and grant you asylum for that. And the guy tells him that, because he goes, I want to work. And he's like, yeah, but they don't just grant asylum because you couldn't find a job back home. And he's like, they told us they grant asylum. He's like, no, that's not how it works. Didn't anybody tell you that? You can't do that? Yeah. He's like, well, I like it here. I'll stay here in Mexico. And it's like, you know, so he's like, he's not picky. And what the real truth is about the Migrant Caravan, folks, you know, no veneer, just complete honesty, is there are a group of migrants that want to go home. They're sick and tired of smelling poop and pee around the clock and sleeping in a ball field. They're sleeping on the ground, not on a floor. There's, you know, it's a ball field, folks. And tomorrow, and they need to move them by the time it rains. They need to start massively moving these people right now, because it's expected to rain, not just for a while. It's expected to rain for several days in a row. And that ball field is going to turn into a soup of mud. So it's going to be uninhabitable. It's already to the point, the numbers, the lack of bathrooms, the smell, the amount of trash generated by 6,000 plus people, almost 7,000 people. It's bound to happen. And y'all, if you went to Standing Rock at its pinnacle, y'all know what I'm talking about too, right?
Exactly.
What do you expect? So then there is the request that they made at the Caravan press conference for increased processing of asylum claims. Now, this was to the United States. They want the United States to speed up their asylum claims process, because currently they say they're only processing, you know, a half a dozen or more claims a day. The United States government processes, and I believe just at that border entry, over 100 claims per day. So, I mean, I don't know if they have their statistics right in the caravan, but they want it to be sped up more. But you understand, you can't just come to the United States and go, do more stuff faster with the same amount of resources because, and this is true, Trump is going to say, y'all won't give me my resources. Y'all won't give me my border wall. Y'all won't give me my extra stuff. So I ain't doing jack squat for you. And that is a political issue.
Yeah, and also I did hear on, I did listen to some local news, not local news, but national news, and they were talking about the numbers for the asylum applications. And here again, if you bring thousands of people to one specific, port of entry, that's not equipped to be able to take thousands of applications for asylum. You're gonna be backlogged in paperwork. You're not even gonna. I was thinking, well, there's 7,000 people, and they said they were taking 100 applications a day. And this other reports from Mexico, it's less than that, less than 100 a day. But then I heard that there's been so many applications that they're piled up, and it's going to be 5 weeks before they can even start processing those applications that they've been gathering. So all the people in the caravan who have actually went through to the spot where you can actually file, for your asylum, they're not even going to start looking at those applications for 5 more weeks. And that was just reported yesterday. 5 more weeks. And then on top of that, some of the stats on who's granted asylum, it's like a very small percent. 9%.
9%.
9% is multiply that. And then here I believe that there are going to be people that are getting rejected because that they don't even meet the criteria. And people are being coached in wrong ways. They were basically convinced they could come and get into the United States and get a job and start working because they had poverty in their country. No, you have to have circumstances that you're in danger, that, your life is in imminent danger, that you'll be killed. And even then.
And you have to prove it.
And yeah, if you don't have the proof for that, or you have witnesses, or you have paperwork and documentation, they're going to send you on back. And this is when you're stepping into the United States. They aren't going to offer you a nice transportation and a planned way of getting you back home like the Mexican government is doing. They're just going to ship you off and dump you in a field somewhere close enough because you won't be the United States problem anymore. So it's like people have been sold false hope on the asylum, and plus just the statistics to do it. It was crazy to bring so many people in one spot to demand asylum because they can't even process them at that port, and it's a huge port.
Yeah. And the way that they answered this question, the way that they said, how are you going to gain asylum? And the response to it being, can you put that up for me? How are you going to gain asylum? How are you going to gain asylum? And the response to that being, most of us aren't, he said, we're not here because people can't get jobs back home or because we can't find a good job, a good paying job. We're here because we can't go home because our lives are in danger. We're fleeing violence. If we go home, we're going to die. And then there was a parade of people that went up there that were saying the same thing every time somebody asked them. It was so weird because you don't think that that's the proper response to, you think when you say, how do you plan on getting asylum, that they're going to say, well, I am applied to, I've actually heard one person answer that correctly today in the number of people that I heard. And they said, I went to the Mexican authorities and they showed me how to request asylum. And I was put on a list of people. I'm number 1,000, blah, blah, blah. They said,
oh, wow.
The people from the caravan that have applied for asylum. And I'm like, oh, there's a process and he knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I thought this question was about. How do you know how to do the do?
Yeah.
And they're like, we need to be here because we're going to die. And I'm like, whoa, that's very strange.
Yeah.
Very weird, strange way of responding to that question. But it's also telling. And I think it's because if you've been following this caravan like I have, then you know that they've been saying the wrong thing to ask for asylum. And nobody was even smart enough to tell them that. Or they didn't tell them that because most of the people they found didn't meet the requirements to request asylum. So they just lied to them.
They want that getting out early, you know.
Well, they needed numbers.
Yep.
And they need those numbers because they don't have any leverage without the numbers, which is why they're pressuring people who want to leave to stay. And there's not just one way to leave. The only way to leave the caravan isn't just to go back home, isn't to get deported or go back home or choose to go back home. It also can mean that you decide that you want to ask Mexico for asylum because they get you a house, like they've done to some of those people that are selling food to the caravan now. Because they help you get a place to live. They help you get work documentation. They give you asylum in Mexico. You can start working right away. They are holding job fairs for the people from the caravan so that they can start to get work right away and get paid in cash until they get their stuff set up in Mexico. That's how much they're helping them so that they can make money right away and get on their feet. They want to give them the opportunity to work, and those people that choose to do that are also being attacked. They don't want them to leave the caravan. If people, thousands and thousands of them go, you know, there's some pretty good job opportunities right here in TJ. I'm going to take advantage of it and the kindness and the good weather. What the hell am I going to the U.S. again for? And they break off from the caravan. Then the momentum, the political pressure, the you know, dysfunctional situation that is being thrown together, hastily prepared, it starts to dissipate. People get more room, more resources, and the tragedy is no longer a tragedy. The crisis is no longer a crisis. And then, of course, you don't have the leverage as a caravan to make your demands.
Yeah.
And the people that organized it don't have any political pressure to wield in Washington. So that doesn't look good either. But it is a thing that is happening. So you can choose to decide to request asylum and to get work. And that's another way you can leave the caravan. And that's another choice a lot of people are making. Because they don't want to go home. They don't want to go all the way back home.
Yeah.
Some people, however, and this is true because I just told you of one such case, can't go back home because they're wanted.
Yeah.
They're wanted criminals. There are people in this caravan that decided to join the caravan because they couldn't stay where they were because they were wanted. And they decided to leave. And they embedded themselves with the caravan. And for whatever reason, the people that organized this caravan did not take the time to vet them properly and make sure they didn't have warrants out for their arrest. And he wasn't putting, or she wasn't putting a bunch of dangerous criminals in with families with children. But hey, right?
Right.
Who cares when you're just looking for a round number like 10,000? They also have requested that they questioned, who is your leader? That was another question. This question they keep getting all the time. Who's your leader? Who organized this? Who financed it? Who's told you these things? You know, and they're so tight-lipped about that.
Yeah.
Nobody, nothing. It's like the Winnie Wong model, just like I told you they did with Standing Rock, Occupy Wall Street, and so many other things where they want to hide the hand that rocks the cradle. And they tell you, oh no, this just formed organically out of the earth. It's like, no, it didn't. Don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. I know when something is organic and when it isn't. And this is not organic. So they haven't been very good at answering this question, but this is what they said at the press conference. They were asked, who's your leader and who brought you to Tijuana? And their answer was, we have no organizers. We have no leaders. We have no political agenda. There is nothing that brought us here except for the violence we are all fleeing.
Yeah.
And there's another big argument that they made besides we're all going to die and the violence we're all fleeing. Which is really weird because, like, there are so many different reasons people have, and they're not just one thing all the time. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm fleeing violence, but also there's no food and there's no jobs or whatever, right? Or my ex was trying to kill me. A lot of women are fleeing domestic violence. A lot of people are fleeing political violence because there's some kind of political leader and they said something that the government wants to kill them for. I mean, they're very different reasons, but most of the people are citing violence in general. Although some of the people in the press conference leadership did say political violence, political asylum, because they are fleeing political violence. But you know, when they're asked who is your leader, their response is that they don't have any. They don't have any orgs. Nobody's funding them. But they asked, why did you come to Tijuana? Who brought you to Tijuana? Why Tijuana? Why all of you to Tijuana? When there are so many border points of entry. If they had coordinated this with Mexicans in Mexico, if they had not wanted the purpose of this to be overwhelming, taxing, and dysfunctional in a way that gave you some sort of leverage because you were going to make a town pop or drop if you don't get the hell out of there or solve this in a better way, then what could have happened is that they could have split the caravan into multiple caravans and set them to several different cities, several different states, all along the border. Mexico's border with the U.S. is massive. Massive. And there would not have been a taxing on the resources of one town and one town only, one border point and one border point only, etc., etc. But then, of course, that wouldn't have been as politically expedient. That wouldn't have looked good on film as much as this does. So I see why they didn't do it that way, but they can't tell you that. So this is what they said instead when they were asked, why Tijuana? They said, well, you'd have to ask each individual person here why they decided they wanted to come to Tijuana, because nobody told them to come to Tijuana. Nobody said, we want to go to Tijuana, so you have to come to Tijuana. Nobody told them, we're all going to Tijuana. They each individually decided it. I'm like, I just don't believe that. Excuse me. I mean, mierda. I don't believe it. It's just not plausible. Every single one of them, all of them, nobody wanted to go anywhere else. Nobody wanted to go to any other border crossing. That was the only one. I think now they're going to start moving them because it's, well, for a couple of reasons. One is that some people in the caravan in Tijuana are starting to get identified as troublemakers, people that are inciting violence, whether that they were identified doing so at the shelter or outside of the shelter, committing crimes in the city of Tijuana proper, as some of them have been accused of doing, or because they have outworn their welcome amongst the people of the caravan. And so some of those folks, and I believe that they're going to be going to where Myron and Evan are going next, because they're already saying they're setting up camps. I believe they're going to set up camps in Arizona and in Texas and move people to border points there as well. And I think that they believe that they're going to be able to grow them fast enough and that they're going to keep bringing more and more people over to Tijuana. Maybe they'll start splitting them up and diverting them to these other cities as they see that they've filled one up. And they think that they can create for themselves the same kind of leverage at another city. Who knows? But it's going to happen. It's already happening, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. Another guy speaking for Nicaraguans said that he was speaking for the Nicaraguan group of Caravan and said that as far as the Nicaraguans in the Caravan, the reason they left is because the conditions back home for them are horrible. The MS-13, the gang violence, all of these different forms of violence. And they blamed the U.S. for that violence or for their negative interference in Nicaragua. And as we know, the American government has been very involved in a lot of incursions in Latin America that have gone very badly for Latin America. So I think that it is a point that they know will sell well with the American people, with the American audience, that they know Americans know about. Y'all know how you done us wrong. You know what you did to Nicaragua. Well, it's been horrible ever since. So you're going to see a lot of that from people on the right saying the reason that it's like this, the reason there's 10,000 of them all at once, the reason it's all in one place, even though it's not understandable why all those things are that and how you can explain them away with United States intervention in Latin America, that's what you're going to hear a lot of, because that's the go-to thing. Their talking points are very, very clear. You can hear them in the press conference, and you're going to hear them reverberating throughout the media. So listen very carefully, and also think about what's behind that position. Request of increased processing for asylum claims was repeated again and again and again, blaming the USA for not going fast enough, when that isn't going to change the pace at which the United States can process asylum claims.
Yeah.
Just repeating that over and over and over again. And it's let me put it this way, is if the fact that violence escalates from the caravan on the border is used to justify the desperation with which they behave because the United States isn't going fast enough, then that's problematic. That's a lie. That's disingenuous, and it is being used for the purpose of excusing some behavior that is dangerous and could get other people hurt. They're also saying that they want to thank the Mexican people. They have learned their lesson about smack-talking Mexican people and lying on Mexican people, as I told you many in the caravan were doing, because the Mexican people, they are investigating you. They are paying attention to what you say. When your people are saying that our food is crap or that our accommodations are crap, and it wasn't. When you were denying the fact that the very first number of caravan goers, there was plenty of resources for when they first got here. A lot of those people were purposely lying right in the beginning when there was still plenty of resources and space for them, that there wasn't enough, that things were horrible, that they're in the conditions that they currently are right now, for real, with too much overcrowding, not enough food, not enough resources, too much trash, lots of potty issues. But they were acting as if that's what they came into. Like, this shelter is already overcrowded and it smells bad, and I don't know how Mexicans stand to be here because it's no good for humans. And the food was the same, and it was probably planned that way so that from the beginning they could make a sense of urgency felt, but it played very, very badly to the Mexican people providing you that hospitality, because you were lying about them for your own political gain, and you shouldn't poop where you eat. And that is currently where you are living and sleeping and eating. So watch your toes. Also, they were making demands, and one of them was that there would be no more arbitrary deportations. And they're accusing the Mexican authorities, right after they thanked them, by the way.
Yeah.
They accused them of snatching people up. So why do they give us a carrot as Mexico and Mexican authorities and people with one hand and hit us with the stick with the other? Well, let me explain to you folks. It is very important for them to continue to tell the caravan newcomers, the people that are still on their way, and the people that are considering getting the hell out of Dodge and getting on one of those buses or planes back home, that if they put you on one of these buses telling you that they're going to take you home, they may be taking you somewhere else. You don't know.
Can't trust them.
They are rounding up people randomly for stuff like eating tacos. They were telling stories about how people could just leave the shelter. A dad would venture out of the shelter to look for food because there's inadequate food in the shelter, right? And he just doesn't come back. So now you get the picture painted to you that there are migrant families inside the shelter that are starving them. They're starving. The Mexican authorities are starving them out because there ain't enough food in there for them. And if you dare try to leave to go and find it, you could be stuck in a bus like they do here at ICE. They snatch you up, take you to jail,
Yep.
deport you, not even tell your family you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they were vehemently demanding that these actions stop immediately. But the Mexican authorities say none of it's true.
Wow.
None of that's happening. That's what they're saying. So for me, I find it, I believe that unless they can show some kind of proof of this, because you can look and see of the proof of the kids in the cages here in America. You can see the detention centers.
Exactly.
You can see the fact that they're rounding up people. You can see the ICE cars. You can see there's video that's like all over the place because it happens out in the open. These roundups, they do them at factories. They do them at schools.
Mm-hmm.
They do them at hospitals. They do them at churches now. They do them all over the place. And there's video. Where is the video? All you caravanners got phones now.
Yeah.
Where is one single proof of what you are accusing the Mexican authorities or immigration authorities of doing? I think they're saying it because they don't want their other people who are starting to think different ways of theirs. They're starting to think about requesting asylum in Mexico and getting a job, starting to think about going back home because they don't really want to be doing this anymore, to discourage them from doing any of those things and keep them in line. Next, they ask for the new incoming president, López Obrador, to make sure and get the legalization process in Mexico for people to get jobs and work and amnesty if they want it there done faster, please. Implying that it isn't being done fast enough. And implying that the new president might not do what the old president is already doing for us. So are you going to help us here in Mexico or not? But here's the thing. I just told you. Remember, the very first group of these people in the caravan only arrived, about 1,000 of them, a week ago.
Yeah.
1 week. They've already held job fairs for them, and there's already people that have got working documents, papers, that allow them to stay and live in Tijuana and rent a house and be selling food to the other caravan goers. That's already happening, at least for that one family that was interviewed. So if that can happen, can we really know for sure how quickly the authorities are turning this stuff around? I told you Mexicans are fast. I told you the Mexicans authorities are working miracles. I told you, TJ, it might have not been prepared for this. It might not have been consulted. It might not have been told. They might have been spoken ill of. They might be getting crushed on the resources and the costs over this, but they are resilient as a mofo. They are hardworking, and they are just picking up the slack like nobody's business. You can't keep up with these Mexicans. They are Mexicans. And the media is investigating this stuff. They are getting to the bottom of this. They are not stupid, and they are not slow. So, it's getting solved, folks. It is getting solved. And let me tell you that AMLO is already met with his cabinet even before he goes into power, which will happen in January. And he's already got a transition plan, and he's already met with the people of the existing government, and they've already agreed to do everything in their power to make this process smooth and fast. And they are working like gangbusters on it. So the next one is that they asked the United States to accelerate the asylum requests. Again, this was made over and over again as a plea for American people to call their Congress members and go, damn it, you have to give them asylum. Do it faster. But see, the thing is, you can't just tell a department of the U.S. government to do things faster. You have to give them resources and people.
And direction. You know, the thing about a press conference, you know, remember me being trained as a community organizer. A press conference is where you are using it to message. You're not only messaging the world, you're trying to do a message, but you're also in this press conference that claims that there are no leaders. And why are these people standing up there saying all these things? Why are these people in the know of saying what people need, what people are saying, what are the demands. Demands come from leadership. It's not just like there's this organic process, everybody knows the demands. So this press conference is very important for several reasons. One, it was speaking out to the Mexican government, to people in Tijuana, the United States, all the media, and to the people in the caravan. They're trying to message people in the caravan on what the talking point should be and what they should be doing. And these demands, like I just told you a little bit ago, the problem with the asylum requests right now in the infrastructure, the way it's set up for even the intakes, is not set up proper. And so just, you need to do it faster. And it's like, well, you need to hire about another 100 people to help process things every day. And that's going to take time. It's going to take, hire 100 people in one day, in the United States. Ain't going to happen, especially in a government agency. It's not going to happen quickly.
So we're literally talking about a government shutdown.
Yeah. And Trump's talking about shutting down the government. He's also going to use this. And all I have is in my head is all these conspiracy things of what's going on here, and it's like, Trump is going, he's already said it. This is, he's threatening to shut down the border, which would be the points of entry. I don't think it would close the flights for the international airports because they're through customs. But to have that sort of threat and then to say he needs a border wall, and just think about that. Okay, here's your whatever billions and billions of dollars for a wall. It's going to take years and years to build it. What happens to the migrants? What happens to the migrant camps? What happens to the asylum requests in the meantime? There's still this huge problem of a lot of people in one spot and more people coming that has to be dealt with. And this whole press conference is not dealing with that as much, saying demands, saying we're leaderless, yet we're speaking to the people here and what they need to do next.
It's crazy. It's not goal oriented. It's all about talking points and propaganda. Mm-hmm. And if all you want to do is shout past each other and, hold signs and torches and stuff, then, I guess this is working beautifully for you. But if you're really genuinely concerned about the caravan and the people in it, rather than just yelling racist or angry things at each other, because you think the other person is such a POS for their ideology on whatever, or their politics, then, you're going about it exactly the way you need to. Nothing will get done. Nothing will, actually get solved. But if you really care about those people in the caravan, then you need to figure out, how does our government help the Mexican government? How does the federal government in Mexico help the states affected by this? How do the people in the media on both sides of the border report information accurately to folks on the ground so that we can adequately address the needs of the caravan and the people having to deal with this crisis? The Mexican people in Tijuana, in Mexicali, possibly in Ensenada, in Guadalajara, in Mexico City. How do we help them help the migrant caravan? Not help political parties and help political agendas and help people in the media trying to make a name for themselves off of their fame at Standing Rock or whatever the hell these people are trying to do instead of the right thing. So let me break down some more of these press conference quotes. They don't want the media to degrade their humanity. So I guess people like me who are talking about the trash that they left all over the place, the statements that they made that were ungrateful and outright lies about the Mexican government, whether it was their leaders or some of the migrant goers or the migrant caravan goers themselves, is not a degradation of your humanity. Calling out negative things people in the caravan are doing doesn't mean that we're saying they're not humans. The American media and many of Trump's supporters might use words like invaders or criminals or even animals to refer to people in the caravan to dehumanize them, but the media is merely reporting. I won't say all of them, but in the cases where they're simply talking about the trash left behind, the crimes being committed by certain individuals, like what I've been reporting. Pitaya Queen is accused of by Mexican authorities, and apparently also possibly American authorities in the LGBTQ caravan. And doing so cannot be attacked by the Migrant Caravan or their supporters and simply shot down as being xenophobic or racist. I've been called all of these things. Here I am, a Mexican, Spanish-speaking Mexican that knows Mexico, knows Mexican people and what's going on there better than most of the people from the United States and the U.S. media that are reporting on it. And I'm being called xenophobic. I'm being called a racist. I'm being called transphobic for reporting what's really happening. Because it's like easier to shoot the messenger than listen to the message. I don't know, but I don't think that we're going to get anywhere in this country or with Central America and Mexico trying to solve this problem if we don't listen to each other. And telling the media that they can't do their job isn't the way to get there. If and when people are in the media are using language like animal or, invasion or diseased, those terms are dog whistles for racist, xenophobic, what have you. Mm-hmm. If you're just hearing reports of activities that you don't believe that are happening, do more research. Find out if they're actually true before you start yelling at each other because they were telling you something that actually happened.
Plus, there's you've been reporting and also connecting the Standing Rock phonies. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that if you're listening to, they weren't part of the press conference in Mexico, but if you listen to the actual points being made in the press conference, they're following the same information. It's like, I can only assume that they're in on some information flow of the talking points of what's going on, that they move over here into Texas next. But you've been basically accused of someone who is anti-water protector. You talk about people who are criminals that are water protectors, people who set up Kathleen Bennett, who put her mom in a hospital, almost killed her, and people who are committing crimes, and they were water protectors. And it's like, oh no, you can't criticize water protectors because they're the chosen ones. They're the holy people, and they're not. A lot of criminals, pedophiles, rapists, abusive, violent people, murderers, were part of Standing Rock as water protectors. They don't get a pass because they're a water protector. And they criticize you because you're criticizing them right now because they're in on this deal. They're trying to capitalize. I mean, you got Evan Duke, the veteran stand for Standing Rock, wanting to form camps. It is bizarre. And it's very important that when you know these things and you get this correct information, that you do expose them and you take that risk. You take that risk. We're not going to lose advertisers over it because we don't have any. We're not going to lose our jobs over it because this is our job. It's like this is what we need to do. So, I find it interesting. Some of the talking points in the press conference are exactly what the Standing Rock phonies are doing now and spreading around.
Very good point. Your analysis is so good. I don't know. I think because we kind of finish each other's thoughts, we think alike. But I think it's because we also have been analyzing this for a long time together.
And you can see it. You just watch it and look at it. Look at their live streams and listen to what they're saying.
But you know what, Duke? It's not as obvious for a lot of other people, especially people that haven't really been watching how these organizers work. Mm-hmm. And, their hearts could very well be in the right place, but their skills are lacking and their incompetence is overwhelming. And what it leads to is people getting hurt. And I just can't endorse that blindly. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. So, another thing that they're doing is saying that this is getting desperate. People are getting desperate because there's a lack of food, there's a lack of resources, and there's a lack of water, which is now currently, with 6,000 plus people staying at this place and imminent rain and all this trash and all this, now currently a real truth. Yeah. This statement currently is definitely true as of the last few days, not the entire week. But as of the last few days, it has become desperate. Things have become worse, and people are getting more and more agitated. But this wasn't being made as a statement of fact. I think that the way it was repeated, and you know, I'm not just listening to the words that are coming out of a statement in Spanish and translating for you the same things that you would be able to read if you understood the language and had been watching the press conference yourself. I'm listening to I'm listening to intent. I'm listening to the tone. I'm listening to the you know, like the insistence of the use of certain phrases. I'm reading all of that and the nuance of that into my interpretation of what I am telling you and what I tweeted out that they were saying. And the way that I heard and read this particular tweet is that something better happen pretty soon here, because people are getting desperate.
Yeah.
You won't like us when we're desperate.
That's right, and it's a message to the people again. You know, you're getting desperate. You're getting desperate. You know, it's also, it's messaging on top of them, and they're looking at the conditions. Of, yeah, we're getting desperate. We're getting desperate. You know, I can see how it's like a mind control of the information that's going out.
And then there was another thing that they were telling their people, and very much, I think, to Duke, about messaging their own caravan at this press conference. With some misinformation, which is that some organizations, they didn't specifically name any organization, but the only organizations that are passing out information about asylum are government organizations in Mexico. Those are the people that are helping people sign up for asylum, and they're federal government agencies. Local government agencies cannot help them file for federal asylum in the United States. Only the federal government can do that, and they have booths at the facilities where migrants are. They are the ones explaining the process to them. Do you really believe the Mexican authority government agencies tasked with this job are lying to them?
No.
I don't either. But that's what they're saying. And then we have to analyze in a minute here, why would they say this at the press conference? But this is what they said. Some organizations are telling the Migrant Caravan that the USA won't grant them asylum. I don't think that's exactly what they're saying. But okay, go on. And then they said, we don't believe it. In other words, we think those people, whoever they may be, are lying to the Migrant Caravan. And finally, they said, we ask international organizations to help us. So let's analyze each one of those things that they said, because it was all put together for a reason, right? They could have just said separately, hey, international organizations, where the hell are you, right? But they didn't. They said it on the heels of saying some people are telling the caravan that they can't get asylum. And that's not what people are telling the caravan. People are telling the caravan what the law is, and the people tasked with doing it is the Mexican federal government officials who are doing it. And they're doing their job appropriately, I'm sure. I believe that they're saying that the Mexican government has been repeatedly telling people, as has anyone that has ever tried to get asylum that's a Mexican, which is probably a lot of people that have looked into it over their lifetime, especially in that city, and found that it's really effing hard and hardly nobody gets it.
That's the truth.
Because that's the truth. If you ask if you ask the American government, they will tell you the statistics. Mm-hmm. And they will tell you, minus the effing, that what I said was pretty spot on. You could also ask immigration attorneys. They will tell you the same thing. And one very key piece of information that must exist is that you have to prove not say, not anecdotally tell about. You have to prove, and the way that you have to prove things in a court of law, like, has to be evidence, it has to be tested, has to be examined.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be accepted by the court as evidence that meets the court's requirements. Otherwise, you cannot be granted asylum if you do not prove with that kind of evidence that your life is in danger. Not that you think it is, not that it might be, but that it is. Which is why only around 9% of the people that ask for asylum actually get asylum. And that isn't like, you know, it's not like the way Trump and all of the people on the right that don't want to believe in climate change just say, I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't apply that to federal immigration policy and law. You can't. You can't. The criteria is kind of set in stone in terms of how you get asylum. So Mexican authorities telling people the truth about that isn't something that's up for you to believe or not in. It just is. The fact that you think you can change it by having a bunch of people rush the American border isn't going to change the fact that the current law is where it stands, and that's not going to change it. It's also not going to change the fact that many people in that migrant caravan are beginning to see the writing on the wall. And it says it's going to take you 6 months to apply, and 99% of you are going to get deported anyway. What is your plan B? Do you want to sit up here in this sports stadium for the next 6 months? And they're going almost immediately, hell to the no. This was not in the plans. This was not in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what I was told. No. And then there is the efficient Mexican people going, I have other options for you if you'd like to hear them.
Yeah.
And they're listening. So this is more propaganda, Duke.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, some people are lying to you. Don't believe it. Stay strong. Remember, there are organizations outside of the authority of the Mexican people and outside of the authority of the United States that can bring their powers to bear. International organizations, you hear me? You hear me?
Like they don't have any influence. Look at the United States with the UN dropping out of every committee, and I wouldn't be surprised if we dropped out of the UN entirely. You know, international organizations have no influence. And I'm not saying that any of this stuff is right. I'm not saying it's right for the United States to not grant asylum only to 9% of or less of people who apply. I don't think that's a, you know, but that's the reality of what people are facing right now. So to make up stuff, you know, and to tell people that you can just walk right in and say that, you know, your life is hard, and then you get put to work in Southern California, you know, and then you're cleaning really rich people's houses, and you have really good wages because you're working for rich people, you know, those are lies. Those are lies, and the reality is international organizations have no influence. Otherwise, there would be all sorts of political prisoners that aren't in jail anymore in the United States. You know, it has no bearing. And I've noticed that in people in the caravan is they have this, where are the international organizations and the representatives to speak for us? And I'm like, you know, really? You know, that's, to me, it's like, that's not going to hold any weight. You know, they tried it at Standing Rock. They brought the UN up there and had a little meeting and wrote a little report. Had no influence on anything. You know, so it's like they're being given false hopes, and they have these ideas that aren't actually accurate.
Your hair really looks nice today. I just had to tell you that.
Oh, well, you did it for me. Thank you.
I was listening to you intently, though.
Yeah.
And I was really amazed by how well you brought up the point about our international standing as a country right now, because it matters, folks. And I don't know what makes these people think they're suddenly like, you know, politicians of the world, or like
they're political prisoners.
It's just this weird, like, you think you can dictate international policy from a podium in Tijuana?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, you're sadly mistaken. I mean, you can have pie in the sky dreams, but it doesn't mean they're going to come true. Just saying.
Yeah.
Now, there are also claims that Mexican officials, meaning the Mexican authorities, are detaining and deporting people for leaving the shelter and buying tacos, perhaps.
What's that mean?
They said that. The way he said it is like, so like people just, it's almost like he invented this little story based on this, fear that he's trying to generate. He said, there's been bus loads and van loads of people that are Honduran, or that are caravan people that are part of the caravan that have been seen driven around by the authorities. We don't know where they're taking them. We don't know if they're deporting them. We don't know if they're disappearing them. We don't know, and we're asking authorities to stop doing that. And I'm like, I haven't heard this reported anywhere. This is the first time I've heard this.
Mm-hmm.
How come nobody in Mexico's talking about it? How come the news isn't talking about it? How come nobody's talking about it? This is the first time? And there's no verification of it. And then he goes, and imagine how that makes the people inside the shelter feel. There's not enough food in there, so you decide you're going to venture out and try to get some food for your wife and kids. You leave them behind, and you never come back. And all you did was just go outside, and then they nabbed you while you were buying tacos, maybe. And I'm like,
oh, okay.
What?
Yeah, that sounds made up. I did hear from one of the live streamers that they had set up a perimeter around the shelter because they don't want people walking around all night long, and it's dangerous. It is dangerous, for people to just be out at night, and it's like, so what they've been doing is that they've been kind of herding people back. There's a curfew. I mean, it's at 10 o'clock at night. You have to get back to your spot in that, they keep on calling it shelter, and I haven't seen a lot of video of what it really looks like in there, but it's like, it's not a rosy place to be, it's not like a bunch of, I don't know. I just know there's a bunch of tents, a lot of people squeezed into a space that's too small for them. But they are trying to contain people to one area of the city. And so when people start leaving at night, they're like, no, go back, just, and so there is some hurting of people, but it's not like if people leave, all of a sudden they're just nabbed, and, they're trying to keep order, because once again, how do you manage like 5, 6, 7? How do you manage 10,000 people in one spot? It takes a lot of work, because there's so many people, so they're trying to put together what they can to accommodate people and also make people safe. And they're really, and that's really hard when you have thousands and thousands of people.
And it sounds true, because they're not all in one place. There's 6,000 and 6,500 of them in Tijuana. There's 2,000 of them in Mexicali. There's, I don't know how many thousand are in Mexico City. There's more on their way. There's more being turned back, and there's people that have been deported. As I told you, some were just shipped out on a plane. There are some people that are being detained. There are some people that are processing for repatriation, and they're going home on buses, and they're going home in transport vehicles, etc. I don't have any independently verifiable information or evidence that the claims that people are being snatched up and or disappeared or detained and rounded up and deported for eating tacos is true. None of it.
Yeah.
So I tweeted that because I thought, wow, these are some wild claims that are making on national, international television. Then they said that, again, they're not here in Tijuana because they're starving, because they can't get jobs. This was something they needed to reiterate.
Yep.
Somebody else took the microphone. We're not here because we want to be. You need to understand that we are not here because we want to inconvenience you. We are not here because we want to bother people, to be a charge on Tijuana. We are not here for our convenience or for our sake. We are not here because this is fun for us. We are here because our lives are in danger. This person said, and specifically, that it's not because they're even because they're starving back home. It's because 90% of their country, that means all the people suffer from this in their country, at least 90% of them do, are suffering from violence and delinquency. So danger, danger, Will Rogers. And again, I think that they're stressing this, not because it's not true. Mexico's riddled with, there's been more deaths than what you could expect from a war in Mexico from all of the violence of the narco trafficking and all this stuff. You don't see them allowing refugees from Mexico willy-nilly just because a bunch of us decided that we wanted to have it. It just doesn't happen that way. I may want it to be that way. We could have a philosophical argument about what I think is morally correct and not. I could tell you what I think about the border policy, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in black and white, what is the current law and what can and cannot be done with it. That's all I'm saying. And some of these things are unreasonable. Some of these things are false. And I think that in order to address what is being asked for, we need to talk about that, because then I think we can get to the part where people need to start admitting that there's an agenda behind this. Yes, this is completely impractical and over the top and exaggerated, and they are hiding their funding. They are hiding the people that organized it, but they're doing it because they want to change the world, and radical, revolutionary, whatever the hell this is the only way. But own that. Be honest about it. Tell us the truth. And let people make decisions for themselves. They said that there have been people that have been asphyxiated. They claimed that, and this is true. I've heard this about people in train cars, in trucks, in the backs of trucks and transport vehicles that have hidden compartments. This is the history of people migrating into the United States and having to hide in order to do it. In this case, this migrant caravan was out in the open. So the lady had to tell a story about why people that I haven't heard reported anywhere in the Mexican media dying all over the place, like they claimed in this press conference happened. They said that people died of asphyxiation. People have fainted because there wasn't enough food and water. That I can believe, and just being tired or sunstroked. But they claim that people have died. Lots of people have died on the way. Many of them have disappeared. They've disappeared because of the violence of Mexico. They've disappeared and died because of the desperation that they're in. And they've disappeared and they have died. They have disappeared and died asphyxiated. Because, and it was almost like, are you going to tell me that even though you're marching in a caravan for protection in large numbers that are openly visible going through the country, you decided to hide in the back of a truck that didn't have enough air and packed a whole bunch of you in there like sardines for no damn good reason, and that you let people die like that even when you didn't have to hide? How are you going to explain that away? And then they did. It was crazy. They said, because we're so tired of walking and we are so desperate to get to the border and not have to walk. We're so desperate for a ride. When a truck comes, we'll all pile in there without regard for our own safety or the amount of space that is available for us. And I'm like, really? Like, so much so that you would go from being like, I came here in a migrant caravan of thousands of people for my safety, but YOLO, I'm going to jump in the back of a truck where I can't breathe with my kids and have children asphyxiated because I just want to get there faster and I'm so desperate to get off my feet.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever. Is that me, or is that not a crazy story?
No, it's a crazy story.
She told that story.
Also, it's like, I can't say, stuff like that doesn't happen, but I have been kind of looking, I hate to throw a lot of doubt on things that aren't, I really don't have evidence for, but I've really paid attention to, the way people look, the way people are dressed, and, everybody's really clean, and one thing that I've noticed is that, no one has any dirt on them, and it's like, and everybody has very bright clothing. And again, there it's like I don't know. I've seen a lot of people, working really hard. A lot of people traveling, traveling in conditions that are, riding trains, riding buses, riding cars, riding in the back of pickups. And I see people that look like they've been riding in the back of a pickup, or riding on a train, or riding out in the open, or walking for miles and miles and miles. And I don't see anyone who's drenched in sweat or dirt or anything, So, and the idea that someone, would throw their kids in and be asphyxiated, it could happen and everything, but it's like, why is this happening at the press conference? It's like, it's these things are coming up and they're being blown out there because they have an audience, and they're throwing all these messages out there to try to create a narrative. And I see what they're doing. They want to show this narrative that they're trying to get the sympathy of United States people, of other people, and it gets worse and worse. The more you bring up from the press conference, the worse and worse it gets.
Robert, do you know anything about asphyxiation? Do you know anything about asphyxiation?
Not really.
I mean, in the sense of like, you're in a place that has not enough air in it. Do you think people just stop breathing like that all of a sudden? Or do you think that people would notice that, oh, like the air quality is degrading in here and it's getting harder and harder to breathe, right?
Yeah, I think
it doesn't happen like
no, you don't just all of a sudden keel over, asphyxiated, like you're in a closed air capsule, and I don't know that much about it, but I know it would be a process to die from not being able to breathe. So if you have a bunch of people laying on top of you and you can't breathe.
I don't know why anybody in the press conference didn't ask this question, but I would have been standing there after I heard the story of children have died asphyxiated, because she didn't say, we have a case of one child, like they did after this gassing of the children and the women at the border, and they said there's one dead girl. Mm-hmm. They gave us one dead girl. She's not dead. There is no person critically injured or dead at all, even though they still keep saying, oh, she didn't die, she's just critically injured, because they want to hold on to their lie a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter remains that this exaggeration, this lie, like so many of the others that we've seen from the very same people in the past, we've been reporting to you that people from Standing Rock are still perpetrating these exaggerated lies. Yep. Like Marcus Mitchell saying he got shot in the chest just so he could get attention and money from people that he knows are gullible. He knows that all you need to give the thousands of dollars that he needs for whatever he wants is to tell you, I was shot, I was injured, and you're going to go, oh my God. This is what these folks are doing. They hear child shot, monsters. You hear child asphyxiated, and you're like, oh my God. My first question, because in every asphyxiation story, and I have heard a lot of them, I have cried. I have researched immigration deaths. I have reported on this for over a decade, and believe me, I go places where most white folks don't want to go. I listen to things most white people don't want to hear about. Every time I try to talk about this with other white folks, doesn't matter what side of the aisle they come from, they tell me they need a break. This is too much. They can't handle listening to it, much less subjecting yourself to looking at it. And I will tell you, it is ugly. I have heard many stories of asphyxiation.
Okay.
But it comes because you have to hide. You are hiding in an enclosed space inside of a train car that is not going to be opened until a certain spot, and then it gets deviated from that spot, doesn't get there on time, and you die. And nobody knows you're even in there because you're hiding, because nobody's supposed to know you're there. And they put you in the back of a truck, and they're supposed to get you from point A to point B in such and so time, but they get put in traffic, or they're stopped by the cops and they have to be quiet, and then they let you asphyxiate because you're supposed to be hiding, because you're not supposed to be there, because nobody's supposed to know. But if you're coming through in a caravan out in the open in large numbers in broad daylight talking to the media, and you're doing all of this for safety in numbers. Why did you let children asphyxiate in the back of vehicles when all you had to do is say, don't close the door? I've seen people traveling in the back of large semis with the back door open. Nobody needs to asphyxiate anywhere because you don't have to hide. So why are you telling a story of what people do, how they die when they hide, when you don't need to hide? How did you let children, more than one, according to this woman in the press conference, die of asphyxiation? Somebody needs to be prosecuted for a crime. Where are the bodies of those children?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why people feel like they can lie about things like that and just get away with it. I haven't heard a single reporter ask these questions. Oh. And my mind is blown. Mm-hmm. I'm like, are people on Ambien? What's going on? Are people asleep over here?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Jesus. How do you miss something like that? Okay, next. Okay, another thing they said to the USA specifically is, don't make asylum a lie. Allow us to apply. Well, I think this is a direct challenge to Trump, who said he was going to block asylum.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as you know, a judge said he could not. Mm-hmm. And asylum claims are going to be processed. And maybe you can allege or you can say that Trump and his administration and his employees in that administration are going to drag their feet just to spite those migrant caravan people because they made him angry or whatever you want to think. Let me just remind you that how many asylum claims they can process depends on how many people they have and what resources they have.
Yep.
And no matter how much belly aching you do, you are not going to speed up that process.
Exactly.
Next. Let's analyze this next one. It says every time. Oh, this is about the people that were in the press conference.
Yeah.
They were making claims in addition to the fact that the reason here that they're here is because they're in fear for their lives, not because they're not unemployed, not because they're unemployed, not because they are starving, not because of economic reasons, because you can't get asylum for that. They recently learned. Oh no, it's because of the violence. They wanted to make sure you know. By the way, this microphone makes me a political asylum candidate because I just spoke against my government right now to the international media. So I'm probably dead. I mean, every time I pick up a microphone, I'm more dead. I'm more likely to be killed. So that's another reason why I totally qualify for asylum.
That's right. But there are no leaders in this movement, you know.
No.
There are no leaders. So I'm just a guy off the street from the caravan just saying the stuff that doesn't have real bearing in anything. So I shouldn't be in any danger. No, it's kind of like that grandiose, you know, grandstanding of now I'm a target. And also, you know, probably saying, hey, you know what, I need asylum because I put myself in danger. But as Cindy said, the hearings and the procedure for asylum and being granted asylum is documentation and proof, and you know it's got to be real. And you know, and again, it's not. I don't agree with it personally. I don't agree with the way the United States does this. You know, in Mexico, the law is different. That you can seek asylum. You can freely walk through the country without being hassled too much. You know, not like the United States. You know, so I think there could be a lot better way that we could do things, of course. But this is what exists right now. So the messaging, again, at the press conference are about things that really don't quite exist, you know, and they're putting stuff together that's creating myths, and they're calling other people liars about stuff that are truths, you know.
They're trying to apply the, if I believe it, then facts don't matter. But, I mean, it's very Trumpian of them. But just because they adopt Trump's, you know, logic doesn't mean that they're going to win his heart.
Exactly.
I hate to break it to you. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. Sorry. And then, of course, there is the most Hondurans did not get to vote for this president. That that whole thing about the voter rights violations in Honduras was just one of the most bizarre parts of the press conference to me, of all of them, because it was like I was just like, as an American watching voter fraud conversations, voter ID laws, voter disenfranchisement, voter suppression happening all over this country, and people fighting legal battles in different states.
Yep, exactly.
And nobody really doing anything about it until after the election is already passed, and there's nothing that can be done. The way that's always been handled, pretty much.
Yep.
And just seeing the apathy of Americans to this issue and the lack of knowledge that most Americans have about what's gone on in Latin America, and specifically in Honduras, I was just like, blink, blink, blink. Like, do you expect Americans to know and or care about your voting rights? Like, seriously?
Exactly.
How is this relevant to your request for asylum? You're saying that the dictator, or the person you call a dictator because you don't feel he was democratically elected. Do you realize that a lot of people feel that way about Trump? Like, literally?
Yeah, exactly.
A little tone deaf, don't you think? I mean, it's seriously like, you're demanding from a guy who many people talk about the same way you're talking about the guy that's running your country right now. And you're saying that that somehow qualifies you in the context of asylum because you come from a country run by a dictator. And sometimes that works. I mean, it did for the Cubans, right? They applied for asylum. They're like, yes, come on in. But that's because we were trying to stop communism around the world. And so we were trying to help people not be communist. If you wanted to flee communism, America would help you, right?
Yep.
That's not the case in this instance. So that's not going to work in this instance. And saying that the Honduran person that is in there right now is a dictator isn't going to help you when the people that helped put him there is the United States.
Exactly.
Do you see where the flaw in your thinking is on that one? And it's bizarre. That's all I can say about that. The next one is this one is just like, oh my God, this was just a piece of Shakespearean theater.
Yeah.
The tragic kind. It was this woman, and she was like practically crying, saying, and to Donald Trump, I say this: you have a mother, just like we have a mom. And she is made out of flesh and bones, just like our mothers are. I expected them to go there like, we have veins, you have veins, we have blood, you have blood, ours is red, yours is red. But that kind of an emotional appeal doesn't really work, I don't think, especially not on Trump. I don't know what that was about, but that's what they were trying to do. And they were trying, because one of the things that they were told as a caravan is that these kinds of public appeals in front of all the international cameras, and they keep calling for more people from international outside of the U.S. and Mexico, because you know how this plays in Mexico, and it doesn't play like they want it to. So you also know that the caravan really wants international places, Europeans. I heard Spain is out there now. They've got a lot of other people that are reporting out there, many of them from the United States, though. Some from Canada, and they're starting to get there more and more. But the point is, they want more of that because they want those media stories to embarrass and or influence other government leaders and or pressure the United States and or Mexico. And until that happens, they're going to keep on saying that, Trump, why are you such a heartless man? Don't you love your children like we do? Do you remember when they were doing that at a Standing Rock to the cops?
Yeah, in fact,
you have wives, you have children, they drink water.
Actually, I think this tactic actually reminded me immediately of Standing Rock, because when people would be up at what they call the front line, it was usually white guys and white women yelling at the cops, and they'd yell these long philosophical points, and I think, those guys aren't listening to you. First of all, they have an objective to not let you go beyond that line and to watch you. And you're going to sit there and try to reason with them. And in fact, one of our friends locally said, I want to go there and go up there and question them and ask them why they're doing this. And I'm a vet too, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you really think you can just go right up there and start trying to reason with these people in this front line? And they're going to just like throw down their weapons and say, you're right, I'm going home. Come on, guys, let's leave. It's that sort of mentality. And also that Trump doesn't have a heart. He doesn't care about people or his children. Haven't you been paying attention? Like that sort of reasoning. And I've seen that too, is that people have been told that if they get over in the United States, the compassion of the United States will actually listen to them and things will change. And none of that is true. It's like, boy, you've been sold a bill of goods when it comes to what you think the United States will and can do.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you what Mexico's doing. First of all, they are opening up a second shelter and they are doing it pronto. There are plans currently, plans are underway to open a second shelter in the east part of Tijuana. And there is there were a number of government officials there today to, are you having a hard time finding that? There you go. They're looking at the location now. They're surveying it. The government officials I saw interviewed today said they were just doing a survey, but it is a likely contender for the new shelter location. And also there is enough space, both a mixture of outside space that will probably be used for housing as well, especially when the weather is good and it's got a concrete floor. So if it does rain, you're not going to have the same kind of mud issues that you were over at the other shelter they're in now. There are many much more bathroom facilities, but those have to be brought up to par. So right in the beginning, without the plumbing, there would have to be a lot of buckets and, stuff brought in for that stuff to work. But they do have to make this move rather quickly because the rains are coming and there's going to be several days of it as far as the forecasts are saying. They also have talked to the president that is coming in, and López Obrador has pledged publicly to support in any way that the current administration is doing. So speaking to the fears that the caravan goers have, that the new incoming president is not going to help them, he is saying, I'm going to continue to offer food support. And in addition to that, he said he will not deport people. He's not going to be deporting people. López Obrador has said he will not be deporting people. Instead, he will embrace caravan goers who want to stay in the country and will offer them asylum and work. Also, the government officials that were at the new shelter location, possible shelter location, said that they could probably fit all 6,000 plus people that are over at the other place in this one spot.
Wow.
It's much, much bigger. You're seeing there's two large warehouses together there, and that's not the whole thing. On this other side, there's another like whole plaza, which I have a picture of it, but I didn't put it up for you guys to see that they weren't sure where it's going to be part of the deal. Mm-hmm. So I figured I wouldn't include it unless there was more information. This definitely was one of the places being surveyed, and there's a huge open lot in the back of that with walls all around it that could be used for additional housing, camping, recreation. They said that there would be enough room in there for them to set up medical facilities and facilities for people to do paperwork and all sorts of things. So this spot right here is being considered to do all of the above. And then there is an update on the Caravans shelter that, the current location, as I told you, is a sports field. It's a dirt field.
Yeah, which doesn't mean grass. It's not like a football field in the United States. It's dirt.
It's dirt.
Yep.
There may be a little bit of grass out there. I don't know. I mean, it's probably trampled to death by now.
Yeah.
With tens of thousands and all these people there. Anyway, Point is, that place is going to not do well under rain, which is coming soon, as I have said repeatedly. And also, Don't forget to follow at Mexican Online so you can keep up with up-to-minute reporting on the caravan. Here is the current shelter and sports facility. Oh, I already had told you that it's a bald field, right?
Yep.
So it will turn into a muddy mess, and they're anticipating a lot of rain. That's not going to be very good for the tents either. So they really need to have a shelter that has like a roof and places where people can keep warm out of the rain. So they do think that they're going to need to move the whole of the 6,000 plus people out of the one shelter that they're in, which is very close to the downtown, away from there. How is that going to change? Well, it's going to mean everything. They're in walking distance of the wall. They're in walking distance of the garita. They're in walking distance of the downtown. They could shut all of that stuff down with thousands and thousands of people spontaneously. That's why they actually have a perimeter around them now, because they don't want them to try another stunt like they tried on this weekend again. So moving them out to this other shelter will mean lots of good things for the people in the migrant caravan: more security, better shelter, more space, more resources for them, but also it will mean more security and more ability for the police in Mexico to plan to protect those folks, and they'll be ahead of them in terms of their planning to try to storm the gate if they try any of those shenanigans again. So what are the Standing Rock phonies up to these days? Well, Evan and Myron were just doing a video today up there on the San Isidro Bridge talking about their activism and all of the people that you can go find on the Asylum Seeker Support Caravan Support Network page, which Evan is an admin of, a creator of, in which Myron is also a supporter of, working with Evan. And that, you know, they're working with the veterans, and they're working with all these groups, and there's so many people that they're helping. They're elevating the names of the natives and the indigenous people that are already doing this work, like Benito Juarez, who's been there and is doing all this stuff. I don't know whether people like Birdie and other people that are being posted about in the Asylum Seeker Support Network for you to put and funnel money to and donations to are good people or not. Our locals have been doing this for a long time and or not. I do know that anybody that works with Myron Dewey, that works with these folks that went to Standing Rock, are horribly incompetent and seriously dangerous. They've framed an innocent woman like Kathleen Bennett, put her mom in an early grave, and they do not have a problem with putting people's lives in danger and lying to them. None whatsoever. So my concern is that anyone that does associate and or work with them, whether it's Bertie Gutierrez or anyone else, is smearing their own name, dragging their own name through the mud.
Yep. They're stepping in the
process.
They're stepping in it, you know.
You really, really are. You need to learn about those people and get away from them. And most of the time, sometimes it takes people a couple of years, but they eventually realize most of the time they have to get ripped off themselves before they're like, oh yeah, this person is a con man.
You were right.
But regardless of where you stand on that, you should know that Evan and Myron said that they're there to support. They're going into Mexico. They're talking about the easiest and fastest way to get into Tijuana and whether or not you should go there. And they're learning Spanish, and they're going to be on the ground for a long time. They're staying there. They're going to be there for a while. So, talk to somebody in the Asylum Support Seeker Network, donate, help them. They need volunteers. They need help. So find out how you can help. And then they left.
Yep.
After they said that they were going to do all this.
We're out of here.
Well,
let's
they
go form
immediately
another camp.
gone.
Yep.
They're gone now. Now they're on their way to Arizona. And you can see it says on this post, Evan, Myron, Arizona, activism actually is posting from the San Isidro Bridge, the same which Digital Smoke Signals was doing a video from just last night, talking about how they're going to be there for a long time. And it says, after 3 whirlwind days together in Tijuana, Evan is branching off on his journey ahead to Arizona with an indigenous elder and water protectors to continue the work of setting up activist base camps along the border in fulfillment of the Eagle. Listen, I am part of the Condor, if you believe this nonsense. And there is no prophecy that says that we're going to get together with a bunch of white saviors from the United States and their sold out Indian buddies and take money from people while exploiting our own.
Yeah.
That is not a prophecy I ever heard of. So stop selling that crap to exploit people of color along with your white friends like Evan Duke, Myron.
Exactly.
No, thank you.
Yep. Agreed.
And then the activism, actually, asylum seekers post from Lilith Sinclair says that Sam Coy and her just moved to Tijuana. And guess what? They got a really big spot. There's a lot of these people renting houses down there for these white folks that are going in there to, you know, be the imperialists that tell the Mexicans how to do in their own backyard. You will do it this way. And they say they've got huge plans to come help clothe, treat, and shelter people. You're treating yourselves. You're taking up valuable resources in a city that is already taxed because of your activism, actually.
Yep. Exactly.
So, actually, why don't you butt out? Why don't you give those resources to the Mexican people who are sorely in need of them so that they can actually help the caravan like they are actually doing and you're actually not doing because you don't even know how to speak Spanish, much less understand how Mexico works. He says, I'm learning Spanish and we're looking into a lot of possibilities for activists too. Stay tuned on Activism Actually.
Yeah.
And also check out the Asylum Seekers Support Caravan Support Network. I say, yes, check it out so that you know who all of the phonies
To
are.
watch out for, yeah.
These are the people you need to watch out for. These are the entitled imperialists that think that they can astroturf the issue of immigration, go into Mexico and divide the migrants and the Mexican people by lying to one about the other so that you can leverage that and leverage your power as a migrant organizer against the Mexican people who are entrusted with taking care of them and tasked with taking care of them and actually are the ones hosting them. You know, it's a stupid proposition and it's going to get y'all in trouble. Movimiento Cosecha, which I already told you about, is in cahoots with Pitaya Queen and has been reporting down from the ground, saying a bunch of stuff that is, you know, not being properly translated, etc. Is also saying that they need 15,000 asylum protectors to join us at the border. They're calling for 15,000 more people. When I just told you what the capacity is in Tijuana, what's happening to the resources there, these irresponsible, don't give a rat's ass about Mexico or the caravan people are inviting 15,000 more people to cause chaos.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that can come of this. It's really disgusting that this is being done.
Reminds me of Standing Rock when they called for people to come down.
In these massive numbers.
In massive numbers.
That's what they did with the veterans. Oh, we only expect 2,500. And then like 10,000 people show up in one weekend, causing massive dismay. It's almost like they planned it all.
Oh, yeah.
And then there is Standing Rock and Tijuana. I saw these all over my my news feed yesterday in different versions. You know what? They want to make the border into Standing Rock so badly. It seems they will stop at nothing, even hurting the migrant caravan itself. I think that it's disgusting that it's happening like this, but it's also the truth, and you need to know. And that's why I'm a Mexican Crossing Lines, bringing you the truth about the migrant caravan. Keep it here on 88.1 FM KPPPLP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves, and have a great day.